It's not just going to be us, reading up questions that the community's submitted, and then just providing answers. We want this to be an open discussion, and like the main objective is really just to talk about all the topics that we keep seeing, coming back up in Cabana Bar. Things like the marketplace changes, the fee changes, the actual topics. Just so we're all clear, so we're going to talk about first community changes. So we'll have 20 minutes for that open discussion. Anyone can come up and just ask anything they want, or let's just talk about it. So the first will be community changes. Then we'll move into Cubs. After that, we'll talk about roadmap updates, and then it will be company insights. Any leftover time, spare time that we get, maybe discussions are a bit shorter than we think, we'll move to just Q&A, and then we'll wrap up. My goal, and I mentioned this in Discord, is really to come out of this with actionable items, whether that's things that we can just go off and do or we put to a lazy vote, but really things that are going to help, just help the project. It's not much more complicated than that. We know there's been a lot going on, and there are a lot of things that have come out, and the community overall seems really positive about it. I know there are some things that we're probably not doing so well. Brian, we'll admit to that straight away, of course. There are definitely things that we can improve on. So, how can we reach those goals? What actionable things can we do that are going to help reach those goals even quicker? So, I can see Hazel's joined up as well. So, Hazel, how's it going, Queen?
Hey, good. How you guys doing?
Good. I'm excited for this call.
Yeah. You guys talk, but I'm here. You need anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess with that, we should bring some people up. The first topic is going to be community changes. So I'm going to ask that everybody respects what we're talking about with the topics. These topics were chosen based on all the questions that we got in the AMA, and just the team's recommendations to me based on what we keep seeing come up in Cabana Bar. So these are the 4 topics that we're going to stick to. So if you're up and you're wanting to talk about something else, just politely ask if we can save that for later in the conversation. So we'll go 20 minutes. Anyone who wants to come up, sorry, Aaron, just feel free to bring them up. And we just obviously let's try and not talk over each other as well.
Okay, perfect. I think I am
multiple people up, please.
Am I officially unrugged yet?
I can see Aaron's mic going on and off, but I'm going to assume that no one else can hear him as well.
There we go.
Cool. To the moon. King, how's it going?
Going well, yeah. So the community changes, that's in regards to marketplace removal and fee changes. Is that this topic?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I think kind of my frustration wasn't really the changes themselves, but more the implementation behind the changes. So I wonder if you can speak more into, for this fee specifically, was that something that you guys were thinking about long term, or was it a decision? I guess it kind of came across to a lot of the community members as an impulsive decision, because the last spaces that we had before the change, you had talked about how our fees were lower than most projects, and that was actually a point of pride. And so when the fees were increased, it just kind of came out of left field for a lot of people.
Yeah. So. No, I definitely know what you mean, King, and I agree. Looking back at it and putting ourselves in the community's point of view, who I think it really comes down to, this is probably going to be a recurring thing, right? And it's I've seen this mentioned in the Discord, and I completely agree, right? It's just a matter of, I think there's been a lack of transparency in certain, when decisions are made from our side, and that's our fault, and I'll own up to that 100% straight away. I think if we had been communicating what was actually going on behind the scenes, because like you speculated, this is something that we had been monitoring for a few months now, right? Obviously volume wasn't, if volume was super high, right, then of course, that wouldn't be as much of an attention, but I still think we probably would have made the change to bring it up in line with other projects. And by the way, like volume is obviously something that we are focused on increasing. This is something we'll talk about later with KPIs, but that's one of the big things that we're looking at is, how can we, obviously how can we bring in more volume to the project? And as you guys have seen, obviously like with hiring, with the marketing team, like that's obviously going to go a long way there. But yeah, that was something that we were monitoring. We noticed most projects that were coming out as well, we're doing obviously much higher mints than we did. We came out with a 0.05 mint, and not only, on top of that, they were doing much bigger royalty fees too. So really what that means long term is not that we're competing with any project, of course not. I genuinely think, and that's why our values are like that, and I've repeatedly said this, when other projects win, it doesn't mean they're taking away from us. Like, that's not how it is. Like, just to be clear with you guys, I think actually when other projects in the space win, it has like almost like a flow-on effect for everybody else, because the space is so new. So when somebody does something like Bored Apes and they go and release ApeCoin, that trickles onto everyone else. And you can see this with other projects. I think even with Moonbirds, I don't believe the whole sucking liquidity out of the market kind of thing. I don't think I've seen enough data to support that. I've actually seen the inverse, which is true, and that aligns with our values as well. But so like that was part of the motivation as well. But the main reason was really our goals. Like we've got big things planned for Lazy Lions. I mean, look at the roadmap first off, right? The recent hires that we've done as well. Plus we've got, even more stored with blockchain media, which I'm not going to like go into too much now, but which is super exciting, I think. So, with all these things, it just came down to, anyone can do the math with the volume. Like you can go do the volume. Everybody knows what our royalties are. Takes 5% goes to the project. 2% goes to rewards, meaning there's a 7% royalty. And then anything left over from rewards is sent over to the community wallet. And then obviously if you're on OpenSea, then it's 2.5% on top of that as well, which I agree can seem a bit high because it's 9.5%. And that's probably something we have to talk about with reasons. We needed the fee increase so that way we can support what we're trying to do long term, which is keep hiring, keep building out the team, doing cooler things, and not just going into a trap where we don't have enough funds to be able to support what we're doing long term. And I've seen some questions about, what about the amounts that were raised from like Lazy Lions, from the original sale and from bungalows. The main thing is like we have a very ambitious roadmap. We have big goals, including with the play to earn game as well. We don't want to be caught in a position where, we've repeatedly said it's a long-term project. We made that clear from the beginning. We don't want to be caught in a position where we were too ambitious. We took too much risk, particularly with things like marketing, which can be an extremely big, black hole of like, or a sink of coin. And then we're left in a position where we still have a community. Maybe Bobo hits or something else, or like there's some adverse effect on the crypto market, volume dries up, we're left with minimal funds now to go and achieve a project. We have to cut back people from the team. It's a really ugly situation. And I'm not trying to be like pessimistic, but obviously like as founders and like as running the project, we have to have that view of like, what if things don't go exactly as planned, right? We need to make sure that we still achieve what we're trying to do here and then be there on the other side when, Bobo disappears. So like those are some of the things that we're going through our minds, right? And that's why we made those changes. We don't want to be in a position where we just don't have the coin to be able to achieve what we've promised everyone. And I think like, I say that sounds like negative. Obviously we have to think that way, but like now the position that we're in, like we're super confident in what we got to do. We have enough reserves to be able to achieve the roadmap. The fees allow us to make sure that we've got cash flow as well, so we can keep hiring and building out the team too. So overall, now it's in a good place with those recent changes. Yes, volume needs to increase, and that's what we're focused on. But I'm super confident, especially with what we've got planned. I know that was a long-winded answer. I probably touched on a lot of things, Keith. It's
Oh yeah, no. I mean, the reasoning behind it, like I said, the increase itself wasn't really like my main issue. It was more of just the implementation behind the changes that. Because I guess how it came across for a lot of the community members was kind of by surprise. So when you can't predict what leadership is going to do, not that you lose trust in leadership, but it makes it obviously increases uh,
Mm.
your risk, I guess, because you're just not what you think might happen might not really happen. And obviously, the space is so new that what direction we go tomorrow may completely change what we thought today was going to be. So that's inherent, but I think it was just like in hindsight, like going through and doing the same steps. Would you have implemented differently? And I think you touched on it. So
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I'm curious to get the community's view and like your view as well. Obviously, like, would you guys have preferred us to be like, hey, like this is a change that is going to be happening next week, for example, like a week from now? Because like you mentioned, like a lot of people, I think share the same view as you do, where it's like we agree with the reasons as to why these changes need to happen. Would you have preferred us to tell everyone like, hey, in a week from now the fees are going to increase? Because obviously, like the turnaround effect on that is then there's a good chance people might sell off and be like, okay, well, the fees are going to increase. You know, here's the time to go. That's one thing, obviously. But just curious as to like your thoughts. Like, would you guys have preferred that?
I think the main part was that like our spaces beforehand, we had mentioned you had brought up like how the fees were low, and that was a
Mhm.
point of pride. Um, I think just easing it into it more, just saying, hey, we have, you know, our roadmap, as you can see, is very detailed and very ambitious, and in order to accomplish the goals that we have laid out, we're gonna
Mhm.
need to ensure that we have enough recurring revenue stream to support the members that are required to fulfill the roadmap. Uh,
Mhm.
and so we'll be, I wouldn't give a specific date, but I would say we're going to be, you know, looking to increase fees to support the, the future endeavors and to make everyone's investment in the project worth more. So
Mhm. I feel like, yeah. I mean, I'm just reading the chat as well. Like, I agree with you. Like, we would probably, that would have been a better approach. Whether or not, like you said, we had have even just announced the date, but just had maybe even spaces like we're having now and just talking about the issue. Um, my preference is to do that moving forward as well, like to actually just have more open conversations with the community. I think particularly even with things like marketplace, where my preference looking back at it would have been like, hey, community, like here's an issue that we're facing right now. Um, like here's the issue. Here's why it's an issue. Here are some recommendations on things that we think we can do. What do you guys think? And like, let's just have an open discussion. You know, either way, like a result, like an action needs to come out of that discussion for sure. Otherwise, what are we doing? But that's probably going to be my preference moving forward. So just curious to like how you view that, and maybe everyone else in the chat as well.
yeah, so I mean, at the time of the marketplace, I think I had 24 or 26 lions, and a lot of those were rares. And so obviously the rare uh, lion value was impacted by that change. Um, I I have also had friends that have been scammed out of private trades, so I understand the risk in that as well. Uh, the way that the Bored Ape Discord runs is kind of you have to go through a series of tests in order to be let into a marketplace channel. Uh, the tests are kind of meant to ensure you know the basic um, risks involved and the most common traps that people fall for. I think the marketplace for me, most of the trading I did was actually trading a lion for other projects, and then I would go and sell those other projects and buy another lion. So I was actually bringing people into like their first lion, which was cool to see. A lot of like duck owners, a lot of with the tiny dinos, and a bunch of those kind of smaller projects that their goal was always to have a lion, and so I would take the risk of taking multiple of theirs in exchange for one lion.
Mm.
But there's also, you know, people use it to get away with a 10% fee on the marketplace too. So that definitely happens.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I'd love to have a discussion with, like, with certain members who are really passionate about this change as well. Like I think we should bring them up and like definitely stay on too. But anyone who's like really passionate about this change, not I don't. There's no point in us trying to single anybody out here. But I think if this is something that's really close to your heart, like that change on marketplace, like please feel free to step up. Like this would be a great way to just have a transparent conversation about that for sure. Because you're right. Like my view on this is like, I mean, I don't think there's inherently a problem with like having a marketplace channel in itself. And like you said, probably we do something similar to what Bored Apes have done, which is fine. And I think we probably just put that to a community vote as well.
Because then it limits your responsibility if a trade goes wrong. You put the measures in place and you made them go through a series of tests and to kind of quantify that they know the risks that are involved. So it's kind of like the burden's placed back on the trader for if they want to do the trade or not. And the side effect of removing the marketplace was I used to have my morning coffee on the Cabana bar just about every day. But so many different Discord channels opened up that I find myself not being in there as frequently as I would, and most of the people that I talk to in there are now I talk to in other, private Discords. So it kind of hurt my like community feeling of, hey, I know I can go on here and talk to these people every day and, wake up with people I've kind of grown to enjoy having conversations with. So
yeah. And see, that's definitely like, that's a negative, right? Like we want to make sure that's not what we want. No way. I mean, the whole point of the Discord is to make sure that the community can interact with each other in a meaningful way, right? So, yeah, I agree. That's a problem. And we can, like, there's definitely no issue with bringing back Marketplace. I think we just have to come up with a solution that, makes sure that we take care of the issues, which is number one, like we want to make sure that we don't want it to be a place where people just do private deals nonstop. I think there needs to be a solution for swaps because I think that's a meaningful thing. Like, yes, some people want to swap their NFTs. I still think there's a lot of risk with that. And you're right. Like we need to make sure we avoid putting the like responsibility on what will ultimately be the moderators and the team. So we need to make that, we need to make sure we cover that. And obviously we don't want to encourage people escaping the royalty fees as well. And that's something I'm curious to just get everyone's like thoughts on that. Like, do people have an issue inherently with the royalty fees? And is that why people are escaping or, doing private deals? Is it, because I don't know, is it easier to do private deals compared to going on OpenSea? Like, what's the main reason people try and do these private deals?
Mostly because the people that have, that are really into NFTs, they're always ETH poor. So even though someone might have a good collection worth of substantial value, they rarely hold ETH. So swapping NFTs back and forth, trading, 3 floors for a rare, or trading, 1 floor for a couple other projects, and plus a little bit of ETH on top of that is usually, that was 99.9% of my trades, and I was doing 10 to 15 trades a week. So
yeah, that's fair. And I think like there's definitely a place where like, I think just overall for the community and like the Web3 space, like if you want to trade your NFTs for other NFTs, like, like we shouldn't be the reason you don't do that. You know what I mean? Like go for it for sure. Like, it's a trade, right? Like it sort of reminds me of like RuneScape, like just trading things like, we don't want to be I remember, I'm going into a whole other tangent that I won't, but it had to do with like RuneScape and removing trades and stuff like that. But that's just the geek inside of me. But yeah, I mean, moving NFTs for NFTs, like totally. I guess what we want to avoid is, people is trying to escape the creator royalty fees, and like, which is the 7% with Lazy Lions, and then obviously whatever the marketplace changes. I think Looks Rare has a different one to OpenSea. I think it's 2% to Thingy, and then Coinbase just came out, and I think they're doing 0% for a while as well. So, but whatever that number ends up being, that's what we want to try and avoid, because obviously that's revenue that the business is missing out on, which obviously goes back into fueling the team, which goes into doing the roadmap, which ultimately goes into, or the hope is that, success for the project, right? Or the aim, anyways. So that's what I'm just curious. I really just want to get, like, if there is another reason besides people just obviously wanting to keep the money for themselves, which is like fine. If that's the reason, that's okay. But I think that's where the issue then really lies.
Yeah. So, what is the data presented since removal of the marketplace? Has there been a quantitative measure of how many transactions have occurred on OpenSea? Like,
Yeah. So we've had, so we are tracking that. Overall volume is down. I think overall volume is down for most projects besides a couple of the top ones right now, like just looking at like when we look at the data. But private deals have decreased by, I think, about 13% was the last number I saw when I looked at it yesterday. So there is an impact, like there has been an impact. I know we've seen, community reports of like of scams. That's not data that we've really looked at on whether or not like that's increased or not. But I mean, we have noticed those community reports as well. There definitely has been an increase in, and in the same vein, I haven't looked specifically at like some of the larger ones. Like we haven't collected data on that for like lazy hats, but I think just anecdotally, like just looking at it, there've been quite a few, more lazy hats than we've seen before. With that though, like if anybody else wants to speak about the fee changes, like please request. I can see Crypto Milk just came up. King, how's it going?
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. How are you, King? I'm just in
Great.
sunny Dubai.
Yeah, cool. Is it the good time or not? I'm not sure because I'm not English and I just make sure. Can I talk to bungalows or not?
So bungalow and lion holders, if that's what you're asking, should be able to be part of this conversation. So I'm assuming there are bungalow holders up here as well. If you're saying, is it a good time to talk about bungalows?
Yeah, but I'm on the lion and the bungalows both, but I'm since 4 years I'm an analyst and trade for crypto, and since August I'm a trader and analyst from NFT, and I just want to.
If we're talking about bungalows specifically, like in terms of like, what's the future look like for them, we'll save that for the other topic, which
It's
is going to be roadmap updates.
Okay, it's not okay. It will be later on updates. That's right.
Correct. Yes. When we move into roadmap updates, then I think that's when we'll, give a chance to speak about bungalows and everything. If that's okay, King.
Okay, remember me. I will stay wait until there.
Of course. Aaron, yeah, please, if you can make a note of that, and we'll bring the King back up then. Also, but anyone else wants to talk about the fee changes while we're on here? I think we'll give this discussion on another 10 minutes. There is also that, and then moving into things such as, I think rewards is probably worth speaking about here as well. And I know we've had a few questions, and or at least there were a few questions about OG sentiment. At least that's how it was phrased. So I think we should touch on those subjects as well. So if those two topics are things that you want to discuss about, and have any recommendations on actionable things that we can leave this call with to improve on any of those areas, then great. Like let's do that. So Aaron, if you could please just bring up some more people as well.
You guys hear me?
Hey, how's it going?
Wait.
Look, I think you're cutting in and out, but
You guys hear me?
yep, I can hear you now. But you are cutting in and out, so
Yeah, 1 second. I don't know why my audio just went silent. I'm gonna figure this out 1 sec.
yep, that's okay. We've got OX 918.
Hey, what's up, guys? I just had a quick question. Apologies, I came late and I just heard you guys talking about the fee change. If you don't mind, just like even what is the fee change And what did you guys intend to do with that? Whatever amount you increased it by, what is the goal of that?
Yeah, for sure, Kings, for sure. So we just touched on this before, and just in the like interest of making sure that we maximize the use of this time, pretty much. So we raised the royalties to 5%. Well, no, sorry, apologies, to 7%. 5% goes to the project, 2% goes to rewards, and rewards is something we're going to talk about. And then obviously whatever the marketplace changes. The reason was that for that is we've obviously got enough to make sure that we do what we have on the roadmap, but we also want to scale the team and do even more ambitious things. So that's the reason why we did the increase. And there were other reasons that I touched on, just to make sure that whatever happens in the market in the long term, that we can still maintain the team and be able to achieve those things.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Cool. So it looks like Toons just jumped off. If anybody else wants to jump up, otherwise, I think just to make sure.
I have a question on the rewards, if we want to touch on that now or not.
Yeah, let's talk about rewards.
I know you guys are utilizing the Disperse app to limit gas fees, but how much of the actual 2% goes to gas fees each month?
So that depends. Like that's something we can get you after the call, because obviously the volume changes.
Yeah.
Like the volume has changed over the months, and sometimes gas is up, gas is down. It's not a significant amount. It doesn't eliminate gas fees dispersed, but it definitely does reduce them with like a little contract. But on average, I think the number off the top of my head is there's about 60% of the funds get dispersed out to reward holders. It was a bit more when we had the Diamond Pause bonus, and then the rest just goes into the community wallet. But we can get those numbers after the chat if that's something you want. If that's something you're really interested in. Obviously, it's all the blockchain as well, so you can just see that, compare it to the total amount. But it's not significant in any means. Yep. Cool. I can see Toons back up. But I still can't hear you, King. So maybe we should bring up somebody else. Cool. I can see Greg's up. King, how's it going?
Going well. Can you hear me?
Yep. I can hear you. It's a bit soft, but I can make it out. How's it for the chat? Cool. Well, King, which topic? So we just spoke about rewards. I think if we probably touch on the fee increases, we've probably covered now as well. But either the OG sentiment, rewards itself, channel removals, or maybe anything else with community changes.
Yeah, I would say it's a mixture of pretty much all of those. I think they all tie in together. I mean, so the past couple of months, I would say the last 2 months, we've had the marketplace removed. It started with Floor Talk being removed, which started it, which I don't understand why it just couldn't be renamed. I don't know why it had to be deleted, because I think a lot of the OGs were in there, and I get it. It's not good for a project to have Floor Talk as one of the main talking points, but I think that was the start. Removing marketplace and then increasing fees while at the same time receiving less information on the roadmap, right? I think there was a time where you guys weren't as active in the Discord and we just weren't hearing as much.
Yeah.
So a lot of OGs, you want to call it, I'm not going to name names, but severely deleveraged. I talk to them pretty much every day. New Discords have come about. And I think it's wrong, honestly, to say that sentiment is positive, because it's really not. I've been here since week 1. As much as I am critical, Lazy Lines is my favorite project. It brought me into NFTs, and I'm sad to have to deleverage, but I think all the changes that have been made have really been hurtful to the community as a whole. And then also raising fees, removing the marketplace. Aaron told me that you guys are using KPIs. And so if you're going to utilize those KPIs, are you willing to make changes? Because if not, what's the point of using KPIs?
Yeah. I mean, I think like just to answer that last question, like for sure, like there's definitely like there's no inherent problem with marketplace itself. I think like you touched on with floor talk, having I agree like 100%. I think as soon as we make floor the focus of the project, like we're definitely setting ourselves up to not be a long-term project. Like that's my view on it because I think like if we all can step back and just like take everything off like and just be super realistic about the situation. I think we are already doing it. Like just for everybody in the chat as well, if we do think that there's a bubble and we're just focused on floor price, what happens if we all wake up one day and the market starts to totally crash? What are we going to be focused on when we come into the Discord where all we cared about was floor price and maybe it was happy days because the floor price was going up, but all of a sudden it's going down. Are we still going to care about that project? Right. And what does that mean for all the effort that was put in by the team, by the community? If we just come back in and like now floor isn't good, so do we care about it anymore? We give up on it. Well, like what does it turn into? Like that's on my mind, which is why we've tried to make it since the beginning. And I know we've had times where like that has been a bit of a focus, like either inadvertently or not. It has been maybe even things where like we introduced the channel with floor talk. But I agree with you. Like overall, like we don't want floor to be the main focus of the project. I think that's just going to set us up for failure long term. Even though, like that being said, like of course, like we know it's important. It's probably more important because the community cares about it than we do, to be honest. Like the community cares about it, hence that's probably why we care about it. I don't actually think it's a great metric for us because at least not long term. Sorry, let me rephrase that. I don't think it's a great metric for short term. But long term, and this is again depending on if Bobo hits or not or whatever happens, I still don't think it's the best metric. I think there are other things, and it ties in with what we've got planned with obviously Lazy Lions with blockchain media, which surpasses all this kind of stuff. But like that's just my general view on like floor and that. So I agree with you inherently. Like floor talk. Should it have been removed? I didn't even know if it was removed. I thought we renamed it to Alpha Den. But overall, like I can see where you're coming from with like how it looks really bad, like all those changes on top of each other. I'm just curious, like did it feel like we were picking on like a subset of the community, like when we were making those changes?
Yeah, honestly, so it did feel like flippers were being targeted, and in my opinion, that is, you're walking a fine line there because there are a lot of flippers and lazy lions, but again, I'm not going to name names, but a ton of the so-called flippers have brought in probably over 100 people to lazy lions and were long-term holders. They held 20 lions while at the same time trading, which there's nothing wrong with that. But now, with all these changes, the sentiment is really down, and now those same flippers don't hold many lions, if any, right? So it's if you're going to target flippers, you're going to alienate people that really matter to the community and that really were well respected. So
Yeah.
It did definitely seem that way, and I don't know if I'm the only one, but maybe other people could speak to it.
Definitely keen to hear more thoughts on this as well. What I'm thinking about what you just said. I want to give a meaningful like add to that discussion. Like I feel maybe we need to focus on specific parts. With floor talk, like what do you feel would have been a better decision with that? Or how would you have liked to see that
So I
play
think,
out?
I think it was a really swift decision, and it was communicated very abruptly that it was going to be not. I guess it wasn't deleted, but it was kind of merged with Cabana Bar. I think the better way to go about it was to just rename it. It just like maybe call it. I get we have Alpha Den now, but it's really not the same. And just so you know, like that was hands down the best Discord channel in all of NFTs, unbiasedly. Like I still talk to people that we would wake up in the morning and talk all day. We would live through that channel. So to remove it, I don't think you understand to some people like what that did to sentiment wise, right? Like I don't want to harp on it, but it was a big deal, and I think that was the start of things.
It's interesting.
I think it's just I understand as well. It's Nine speaking, but how would you have preferred this change sort of to go down? Would you have preferred it if it went to a vote first and then we all came together as a community, or was it just the lack of communication that might have stemmed from this? Or just curious to hear your thoughts a little bit further around how you would have liked to see this sort of play out, and us sort of make this change rather than a better.
Yeah, I just think it could have been communicated better as long as, the marketplace and the other decisions in the past couple months, as well as giving more information into the background of those decisions. And I get floor talk, that can't be the central focus of the project. That makes complete sense to me. But I just think, over the course of the couple months, sentiment has been really down, and coupled with the lack of information, it hasn't been great. There's other things I want to talk about, but I don't want to stray too far in terms of Cubs and but one of my big concerns now is the floor price with Cubs, and because I know that was something that you did say, so I don't know if you want to wait on that, but
King, if it's all right, I think we'll wait for that on Cubs, but we're going to move on to the next topic very soon. I think we'll just give this a couple more minutes, because I know this was a meaty one.
go for it.
But I really want to leave this topic with just a few more things that we can really just maybe put to a vote, or actionable things that we can do to like positive, just make some positive change here, I guess. How does everybody feel about rewards? Because I know that's something that keeps coming up. I've said my thoughts on this many times with like the importance that it had, particularly at the beginning of the project. I think it is starting to wane a bit, and obviously 2% is, is a sizable amount as well when it comes to the royalty. I think like just looking at the community and what they're saying, I'm seeing some people saying to just ditch it. The last time we spoke about rewards, I think it was like a few months back, maybe at the end of 21. People were pretty passionate about it, about not removing it. Is this something maybe that's worth putting towards, a vote and just getting general sentiment? Because obviously, there are two things we could, like the 5% fee that we have right now for the project. Of course, the extra 2% that could just go into, accelerating things. But otherwise, we can just look at removing it. I'm just reading the chat too. There's still some talk about the floor talk in Cabana Bar. We need to do anything we can to make the 9.5% fee go down. Yeah. Okay. It's an interesting take. I think this is probably something we need to get more views on, like after this chat, and we'll probably just put it to I think maybe a lazy vote. I'm curious, like everybody else who's on here as well, like Greg, what do you think about rewards and either removing it or reusing those fees? We could have those fees go directly to the community wallet. The community wallet, as we've said, is going to be used for things like events like NFT NYC, as well as other community events. But what are your thoughts on that before we move on to the next?
So the first thing I'll say is, I get a negative rap in this Discord. So the first thing I'll say is rewards was very innovative and it was awesome. Like in August, September, I was making $1,500 a month by having 25 lines. It was crazy. And that's part of why a lot of people came into the project. So kudos to you guys on that. That being said, the NFT market, has shifted. Things have changed. It's become more dynamic. Volume has decreased. I think personally it's time to scrap it, and I would love to see that 2.5%, just reduce the fee so it just goes all to you and help the team grow the project. And I think a lot of people would agree, because I think we're making $6 or $7, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to move on, but it was great.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
It's interesting because if we were to sort of remove the actual 2%, and then that would not want to come to us potentially, rather than bring it back 5%.
They bring the overall fees down, which might make it more attractive for people to enter, because maybe that's the reason people don't jump in. I think we definitely need to look at more data on that, but I do feel like there's a change that probably needs to, or at least we need to get like the wider community's view on this. The main reason we haven't wanted to touch anything with this, even though I know it's been waning, is the last time we touched it and the community's reaction to it. But I think it's just a matter of putting it to a vote. Cool.
Hey, what's up? What's up, Kings?
King, how's it going, Gary?
Good. I thought I'd come up and talk about this really quick because I've I guess I've had a lot of reward from this because having top 10 amount of Lions, picking up all those floor ones when Greg was egging me on back at the beginning. But my thought on it is that it could go away. That's not I think a major thing with Roar token coming out. And I think it has changed since that last time we sort of gauge sentiment on it. But I do think that there's something we could do in the meantime to try and drive some reward, because you have to think about the other end of it, like what's going to happen if you take it away. Are you going to see less Lions on Twitter using PFP? You're going to see less bungalows. Kind of what are the unintended consequences of that? So maybe in the meantime, one of the things I post in ideas and feedback is just we could use those funds to say buy up 15, 20 floor Lions and then do weekly giveaways where we get something like this on Discord, or sort of everyone that qualifies gets entered in. So you still get a benefit of having more Lions. But you could add some bungalows in there. You could do some different things, but that's just quickly my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I agree with you, King. We definitely need to think about that. I mean, one side is like, have we moved on from the very early stages where, obviously it was like we were almost paying the community to change the profile photo at the beginning, and now it's because Lazy Lions is in a completely different space. Being top 50, top 60 volume, very established. People just want to show off the profile photos just because of the importance of what Lazy Lions means to them. So maybe there's an argument to be made even against that point too. I think overall, I agree with what you're saying. We need to think about it and make sure that we don't just, remove it and then we didn't, think about some of the unintended consequences. For sure. And the reality is yes, raw tokens coming. The whole ecosystem's going to get that, but that's not until later in the year. So if we make that choice to remove rewards now, is there, there's going to be a gap, and is that going to be dangerous for the project as well? My gut feeling says I don't think so, but I think it definitely needs to have not only a discussion with the community, but also internally we need to think more about some of the unintended consequences. Kings and Queens, I'm going to move to the next topic, just in the interest of time, which is Cubs. I think there are a few questions that brought in subtopics of this, which were, information about the allow list, any updates. There were a few questions about Coinbase as well. And even just some concerns about floor marketing. I think, Greg, you touched on that earlier too. I want to keep this as an open discussion, which is why I haven't just started off a topic and then just given a little my view on it or anything like that. So let's just open it up to anyone who's on stage right now. You want to ask any questions or start off with anything?
Hi, thanks for having me up here. Can I just say something real quick before we move on fully to the discussion of Cubs?
Yep.
I was just letting Gary and Greg talk. It's pretty cool to see people that are so vested into this project, that have so much knowledge. I feel like they bring so much value. So I want to give those guys a quick shout out. Yeah, so I have a question. based on the Medium article that was posted this week. It says something about Glitch's story, and it mentions an exclusive digital comic for Lions. So before you go into, I don't know if anybody else was going to ask about that. I don't know if it was so popular, so I wanted to quickly just touch on it before we move to Cubs. Like that digital comic, what is that exactly? Could you clarify?
Yeah, King. So with that, like respectfully, like we can definitely talk about that. Let's save that for roadmap updates, just so
Okay.
we're keeping in line with topics. But we'll remember you, Aaron, if
Okay,
you can.
it will be clarified. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And Sumo, I just saw a good point by Sumo. So just to summarize, guys, with the community changes. So marketplace, I think some actionable items here, like sorry, well, let's start off with rewards. We're going to put that to a vote to get the sentiment on what we should be doing with the future of rewards. We can't tie that in with the raw token because the raw token's not coming out till later of the year. And while we could, but we would have to wait. So that means rewards would just stay the same. We could, there are a couple options. We could just get rid of the fee. We could put that fee towards the team. We could just put that fee directly to the community wallet. We'll put that to a vote. That's the actionable item. The next thing is with marketplace. I think it's a tough one to be put on, for us during this AMA to come up with a solution for this. I'm not sure how we're going to come up with a solution or if there is a solution for this, but I think what we'll do is we'll send out what the issue is and some of the challenges that we're facing and just put that to the community, and maybe we'll create a channel where just people can reply with some ideas on how we can bring back marketplace, whether it's a listing bot or not. I know I've seen a few ideas here and ideas and feedback. The reality is I don't think any of them have really hit those challenges head on, but I think that's probably one actual item that we can do. If there's anything else that you guys think we should be doing, putting towards a lazy vote around this topic, throw them in the chat. Aaron, if you can please just look at that chat and then bring any of those up, and if any makes sense, we'll put that as an actionable item. But with that being said, let's move on to Cubs. So open discussion. Any topics, I'll just put that to the floor.
Okay, I can talk for the Cubs.
Awesome.
Cool.
Okay, it will touch. You will see why it will touch the bungalow. But my main topic is the Cubs. You will see, because I work for TimeChain.com, is the biggest crypto company in Canada. Now they move a new division in NFT. I work for them from analyst. And I talked to, I'm a long-term owner of Lazy Lion and Bungalow. And I talked to them to the Cubs is coming to invest in this project to buy some lion to receive airdrop for Cubs. And after a roundtable, what they said to us is at the end, he said, we will not invest in the Cubs, in the more lion to receive Cub because they don't do nothing for the bungalows. He said that to me. They said to me, if they see that the floor price is there for the bungalow, not at 25% of the main collection, it will be the same thing on the future. And I said to them, I want one day I will talk to them because each big AMA I'm there to listen, and yeah. I remember the night that you release you release the project for the year, the picture when you throw the picture, right. And that's right. Everyone so excited, and at the end of the night, you make a new AMA, and I'm there, and I remember that a big player said to you what you will do to the bungalow. And at this time, there are a small momentum is building from a bungalow. And I remember you said it's not our priority. Lion is our priority, and we see after that the floor price dropping drastically a couple of minutes after. And for me, just to say why. If you want to build something strong, why don't like Cubs. The Cub is a super high D. Personally, not time chain analyst. Me personally, I'm excited about Lazy Lion. And why don't everything is coming? Not put bungalow for why for to every project it will coming. It's not give a rock on the shoes. The Cub is coming, but the people, some people are afraid who have a lot of money to get in of the project. Why? Because they're looking all time what's it happen with bungalow. Example, why don't say you want an airdrop for a Cubs, but you need a bungalow and you need a lion. You need both. It's I don't say do that. I say it's so easy to every big move to include bungalow on the project. And first, it will good for every future project when people see that. Secondly, it will good for we talk about fee. We talk about the future of the company. If you have two collection bring money to Lazy Lion, that's good. But now they are just Lazy Lion bring money, bungalow bring nothing because the floor is complete down. You understand that?
Yeah, I think that's I think it's a really interesting perspective, and I agree with some of the things that you're saying because those are things that we've thought about as well. I'm curious to get your take, King. You mentioned I'm curious to get the community's take as well because I think this is something that obviously affects the wider community. In making it so that you have to have a bungalow and a lion to receive a cub, because that is something I remember, we were thinking about quite a bit. How do you what are your thoughts on that? Like, what do you reckon the effects might be? And I'm just curious about the community overall. Is that something you would have preferred to see? Because that's not the case right now. The case is everyone who owns a lion will be airdropped a random drink, 1 of 3 drinks, but it doesn't matter if you have a bungalow or not.
That's my idea. My point is not to do that. Is it possible because you are there each time, each AMA, and each time you have a people to come with bungalows, and you see the sentiment of the people is a little bit disappointment. You see that, and I'm still there with the company with this collection. I still own my lion, but at the end I understand what's happened, and I said to you, if we don't care about the second collection of this project, I'm sure, because why? Because I have a round table with another analyst from Time Chain, and they said no, they don't care about the second. We don't go in about the third, the fourth, and everything is coming because we will wait that they do care about the second, and if we know that they do care about the first and the second collection, we will go in for the future. The main point is the people don't say to you that every day, but the people don't get in. You lose it, and you talk about fee. You lose money. You lose money for the company of the future. The people run away because the bungalow is frustrated so many people at the time.
I'm curious, just from that perspective, like what, because that's a really interesting take. Like, what is it about the bungalows that maybe like you said during the roundtable that you had with the other traders? What is it about the bungalows exactly that they were? It sounds like they've been disappointed by them. Is it like someone mentioning? Is it the utility? Is it maybe the volume that's been traded on it? Is it the focus from us? Is it the floor price? Like, what is there any one thing?
Yeah,
there is a
good question. Good question. The main is what's coming about the roundtable is that when the AMA is clearly said that it's not the main it's not the main goal. The main focus is be always will be the Lazy Lion, and what they said after that? They said then if it's not the main goal, the third collection is not will be the main goal. To why to buy Lazy Lion, to have a airdrop to Cup when we know we I hope it's not true, but when we know that the price will drop rapidly. They have, they said why we will invest one Ethereum or more on something that what it would give the investment we return of that it will be near nothing. This is the main point, and it's so easy to incorporate at each decision the second collection, the bungalow. It's so easy. I see many things that the last year that you can say you need bungalow to do that. You need bungalow, and it's so easy to take this collection and go to 25 or 30 or 40% of the main collection. It's so easy. Look, every good for now, the big project with second collection, where are they? Is this the value is 3% of the main collection? No.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So like, as in like other projects that you're seeing in the space, just I just want to make sure like we're both on the same page. And thank you for sharing that as well, King. So what you're mentioning is other projects right now whose second collection, their floor price is normally within like a 1-to-5 ratio. I think that's what it typically is. Like when we look at our data,
That's right.
anyways, it's about 1-to-5, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and then the bungalows is not 1-to-5 to the Lazy Lions. Therefore, there are questions as to okay, why is that? As we, like you said, people speculate that it's probably because whenever we've had AMAs, things that I've said, and I agree, like sometimes, we have to be careful about things we say, and we say, what we actually mean. And, obviously communication is very important. But there have been times where I've said, yes, like bungalows is not as important as Lazy Lions. And with Cubs, obviously, it wouldn't be as important as Cubs either. Which is, and I stand by that. Like Lazy Lions will always be number one priority. Cubs will then be a second membership level to that, and then bungalows is a companion to those. That's the hierarchy. Doesn't mean we're not going to focus on bungalows, but it just means one is important than the other, and that's just the reality of the case.
It's not a critic, for of course. I not speak well, but I'm not. It's not a critic. It's just yes, so many good things coming in the future, and just don't put all the energy. And after this energy is going down and down and down, it will discourage you. I'm sure if something you do each time they go down after. I can tell you that it's so good for the energy when you do something and it's work and people is happy. That's so good for you and the team. It's just an idea. It's not a critic. I love very much this collection, and it's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think I would love to like any ideas on like things that we can do for bungalows. Like for sure, like we're definitely open to that. It doesn't have to be on this call as well, but maybe that's an action item that we take post from this, Aaron. And obviously like some things just might not be realistic because of resources, but otherwise, there might be simple things that we can do as well. So Aaron, if we can make that an action item to go to the community, post this in a similar vein to what we're doing with the marketplace, and ideas on what we can, what everybody would like to see with the bungalows. I can just clear up a couple things with this just before we go to that kind of discussion. Bungalows will be part of the raw token. It'll be a multiplier, so you will need to have that in either the Cub or the Lion. And yes, Cubs will also be part of the raw token. So it'll be a multiplier on top of that. So because it is a companion, and this isn't too different to how others have done it. I'm seeing a few comments. Yes, like even Bored Apes, it's a similar structure to that. We're not reinventing the wheel when it comes to like distribution like that. So that's one thing. There's another item that's been brought up, which is something that we're looking at doing, and I mentioned this. We're still determining how we should best do this. It is with giving bungalow holders access to the allow list. Obviously, we can't do all bungalow holders because that would just be the whole allocation for Mint. But I think what we're focusing now on, and I'm curious to get the community's point of view, and maybe we put this to a vote, is should it be for those who originally purchased the bungalows? Because there was there were 1,500 that were set for purchase. Those who originally purchased them and still hold them, they should get an allow list potentially.
Yeah.
I don't think we can do all 1,500 because that would eat up the allocation. This is something we have to, we've been talking about internally, yet to make a decision on. But I think this is another piece. Maybe we put it to the community as a vote. So, Aaron, if we could put that as an actionable item as well, please. I will say though, I'm very curious when people come up with, and this is why I love talking about this, even though it's a bit different to Cubs, but I do see how it relates, which is why I agree. It's thank you for bringing it up during this point.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, no, of course. When it comes to like utility of these collections, obviously we did try something new with bungalows. It was something that was part of our vision and a problem that we saw in the market, and we spoke about this where like we didn't think it was easy to show off your NFT collection. So we did try something new, not just for the sake of trying something new, but it ties in with our values. It ties in with the vision that we had for the project, and we saw a problem. So we're like, hey, we'll create banner profiles that act as a gallery for your other NFT collections. So inherently, like with that alone, I thought that was utility, like compared to what we're seeing in the market. Just that question of utility, I really want to go down on like, what are people really, really looking for there? Because you do own the IP rights there with the bungalows. It does give you access to the Discord, parts of it as well. We do sometimes put votes. We do sometimes give out things like the tickets.
Correct.
But if there are more things, we're definitely open to hearing it. But those are just some of my views on that as well. Cool. I guess with that, let's probably move on to Cubs now. And we'll give this, I think, another 10 minutes just so we can fit in the other two sections as well. 3 topics that we saw, but happy to bring up other topics like under Cubs, was allow list, Coinbase, and concerns about floral marketing. So anyone else who's on right now, if you'd like to, start off with anything, please feel free.
I have a question about the allow list. I mean, that's kind of why I brought myself up.
Sure thing. Okay.
Yeah. I'm just curious around the thought, like there hasn't been much communication around how lion holders get allow list. And I'm just curious, like when that information is going to roll out, or if you can give us any kind of sense of like what we can do to join the allow list. Cause it feels very focused towards non-holders at the moment versus kind of people who hold lions today.
It is. And the main reason for that being is all lazy lion holders will get airdrop the drink, which you can use on your existing lion to create a color version of that. So same traits, but different artistic style. Or you can just choose to resell the drink. So that's the main reason why, yes, we have given priority to those who aren't already in the community. And what we're looking at right now is members who will, like pretty much have share the same values as our community does overall. Because there will still be a public sale element to this. But the allow list is really for almost like curating the members that we're bringing in addition to the hype that it brings as well as part of the marketing. So those were the reasons, is like you guess, yes, mainly it is for non-lion holders, but that being said, there is still a subset that we're putting towards lion holders as well.
Yeah.
And holders can still participate in the giveaways that you post on your Twitter. Can still participate in the Galactic games that we hold on a daily basis. So
yeah,
there's still that opportunity too.
I'm curious to get your thoughts on that though. Like, how do you feel? Like, how do you and the community feel about the fact that we are, giving that bit of a priority to non-lion holders, and that we are, have chosen to go with the white list, the allow list, sorry, and or almost curating who we bring up.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like there should be some sort of allocation towards holders. Like, I only have one lion and one bungalow, but I'm out there chugging glasses of milk on Twitter for for this project. I'm probably one of 4 people who did that, and it just feels like there was a lot of excitement from non-holders into the Discord, but yet it feels like it's faded off a little bit, and so. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like you should reward those who have been with you the longest and give them more opportunity to get that allow list spot.
It's interesting because there is only, obviously the issue with that is the supply of these allow list spots as well, and how many. Which that's the challenge that it brings. Give this guy an allow list.
Post the video.
That's what Gary just said in Kabadaba. It's getting a ton of reactions, but yeah, it's interesting because it does just come down to the math of it as well, and like how many spots are able to give out. Like it's just one of those tough problems because at the end of the day, like there's only so many that are going out on mints as well.
Yep. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe that's my ask is like, and then maybe that's a way to incorporate bungalows is if you're a lion holder and a bungalow holder, maybe we have a raffle for so many allow-less spots, and like that's one way you can incorporate both dynamics. But I just feel like there should be some clarity around like how many allow-less spots there are for lion holders today, and how, because I'd love to get more cubs. I can't afford more lions, but I'd love more cubs.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think there will be the like the public sale element of that as well, which gives everyone a chance. But I think we can give more clarity. Like what I can do right now is like in terms of the amount of spots that we've given out 200 spots, or just over 200 spots, I think, in the allow list, which is great. And we've seen some really positive reactions as well from those who have gotten the spots who aren't part of the current Lazy Lions community. So in terms of that, it's been really positive.
Yeah. Well, I'll step down and let some others ask questions, but yeah, keep crushing it, guys.
Thanks for coming up, King.
So if I could go to talk about like the Cubs and about like the marketing and that sort of aspect of it. So one thing that I noticed in like the sub communities and everything was just like frustration with the kind of announcement of it, because it was the end of March. And for like saying that it's going to come in July just seemed like it was too far away. That like the hype of it, like people were hyped up about it, and then it kind of died down. And then to get that energy back up again, maybe you guys have something in mind for that. But these are just things that I noticed, and then as well as like when they had like the I guess like sneak peek of it, it said spring 2022, but July is in the summer, so it was just like even more confusion about that in terms of like the marketing aspect of it.
Yeah, see, this is an interesting one. I think it's part of like a larger topic as well. That is definitely a good point to discuss, and I'm curious to get like your views on this as well. I think this is a problem that or I think this is something that we've probably hedged ourselves into by the way that we've announced announcements in the past. And maybe I'll just share like what we sort of face as like a team with this, and like what I'm seeing in the wider community, and then I'm curious to just get your thoughts from that. Because I think we're in a position now where like let's take the roadmap, which actually I think was a successful thing that probably happened in the community, like in terms of like the volume. I think the follow-up was what was missing, like looking back at it and doing like a retrospect. I think if there had been more thought to that, and thinking maybe that wasn't just enough how we followed up and did something else, maybe that would have made it even more successful. But obviously what ended up happening was obviously there was a sell-off, and we almost created like a buy the hype, sell the news event. Like, okay, well, why did we do that, right? Like, just so we take a step back, and maybe I can just provide like my views on like why we actually went about announcing it. I think there's almost a challenge of like we're building things in the background. Like right now, obviously, we're working on multiple things on the roadmap, which we would love to just share details on straight away and just be like, hey guys, this is what we're doing. But we also have to take into account like how does the wider market, because we want to bring in more volume into the space, how do they react to us sharing news? Do they want us to share news about it straight away, and then like hey, we can tell you guys that the exact launch date of Cubs, and like here are all the details of Cubs? Or would they, do they prefer things? And this is what I'm starting to see is they prefer things where it's almost like a surprise and delight, where it sort of just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
People weren't expecting it. And it's like, yeah, and like, right, like your reaction
Definitely, yeah.
yeah, where it's almost like no one was expecting it, and then like boom, all of this comes out, and it's like launches in like a week or maybe a couple of days. And I agree with you in your reaction. I think that's probably what we want, and I'm looking at the community as well. They're all saying surprise, delight, and surprise. The problem we then face is this, and like this is the realities of just like how we're working and how we're going about it. And people can probably say, whether it's work harder or work smarter or whatever it is, these things take time. Like let's take the NBA partnership, and like this is why I'm curious to get everyone's thoughts, because maybe it is a matter of like, okay, let's just keep doing this, or maybe it's a matter of just like suck it up as the team and just release things when they're completely ready. Like with the NBA partnership, obviously, like we thought that was a massive deal. I mean, shit, it's a partnership with the NBA with Sacramento Kings. We brought them up. Well, we had a Twitter Spaces. We're like, okay, first project to do this. Do we wait until we have something, a lot more fruitful? But that's going to take time, and not just because of us, but let's say, obviously because of the way they move too. So we can either choose to not say a thing and then announce it all at once when it's ready, and maybe it's of a bigger scale, but that's going to take time. That's just the reality, right? Whether or not it's because of how quickly we can move as a team or because of partnership wise, like it's just going to take time. That might be 6-12 months away, right? And like in this space, that might seem like a lifetime away. Or do we announce whatever we have right now ready to the community, try and be as transparent as we can be, but then obviously it's not that big, and then we might lose that that edge of surprise and delight, because it's almost like well, is that what it is? They said there's more coming, but there's no details whether or not we can share. But it's like, I think we lose that hype then or like that marketing power of being able to just drop it all at once. Like that's this is just what we're sort of facing at the moment. I don't know what the best answer is for this. Like we're leaning towards just doing the surprise and delight, which is why we're withholding from a lot of the roadmap details, because some of these things are just not ready. Like Cubs is not ready to be just dropped right now. Like that's the reality of it. So it's like, do we just wait until it's completely ready and then announce it? But what do we do in the meantime? I'm just curious to get like, this is a topic, we just like openly discuss. I'm keen to get as many views on this. Like
Can I chime in on that if you can hear me?
For sure. King, how's it going? The Golden King.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all well. I think with the big news, it's good to just drop it as a surprise, definitely. But with the Cubs, and this is just my own personal opinion, we've seen the Sheriff, and there was kind of nothing for 10 days, and NFT space, even shorter attention span than the crypto space. And yes, we're a long-term brand. We're building that, but I think we need to sustain the momentum as well. So, like, say there's going to be 160 Cub traits based on the Lions. Why not show a new trait every other day? Get all the sub communities hyped. Keeps us happy, keeps us things to retweet and roar about. And at the same time, you're not giving everything away. So, say Cubs is in 2 months, worst case scenario. Even if you did a trait every other day, you would still have half the traits left as a surprise on the drop. Just little things like that. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I'm totally fine with it coming out in July, especially with the fact that there's also going to be the glitch with it. Like, I thought that was a really good kind of compromise, because a lot of people thought that it was going to come out, the Cubs are going to come out earlier. So I thought that doing the glitch at the same time made up for that. But it was just the kind of when it was said, like months away. But that is like a very good solution. Like maybe not even every other day, but like a week, like release like something about the Cubs or something like that to kind of keep that hype rolling. And then like you already said July, so like now people have like a rough idea, but like nobody knows exactly when it happens, so we get the surprise. Yes, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, King, just to not cut you off, because I'm seeing the community, it's a bit confusing for everyone. So it's never been July, it's been H1. Now H1 is obviously April, May, and then June, and that's within the time frame that we're seeing. So just not to cut you off, but just so we're on that. So yeah, please continue.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So even better. But yeah, so nobody knows exactly when it is. We have like a rough idea. So if like you release things on like a weekly basis about it, like images or something like that, not like the whole thing, but like NFT Cal was saying, the traits. And then you kind of keep that hype there, and then you can do the surprise thing, because I agree with you with what you said. Like it's you do have like a rough balance of like surprise and like building like hype, but now that the information is out there in like a general time frame, then you can randomly do it at some point in that time frame to kind of build that surprise, or be like the next, like tomorrow we're doing it, or like this week it's going to happen type of thing.
Hey guys, I'm sitting here quietly because this is really a time for the community to talk to the founders, but I do want to jump in on this since it is marketing. First of all, I really enjoy just listening to everybody's perspective on how things are communicated, because coming into this role, communication is obviously a really big focus of mine. Improving it, learning how people respond to it, learning how they want us to put things out there and when, is a really big part of my priority list right now. So we'll just say I'm enjoying it. As it relates to Cubs, I came into this role in kind of a strange time, because we are in the sort of middle of the Cubs marketing window. As Ash said, Cubs is not quite ready to come out yet. But at the same time, we know that it's time to start putting messages out there. I was the one, we had that great spaces, 2 weeks ago, and there was so much momentum and so much excitement. I was the one that said, you know what, we should release a Cub. We got to show a Cub this weekend. And, everyone was like, you know what, yeah, let's do that. In hindsight, listening to what you're saying, maybe that was not the right decision, because we then have had a period of time, and Ash and Nine and I, we've spent really a lot of time having this debate internally about what is the best thing to do. What we're doing on Cubs, the longer term plans that we have are amazing, and we are going to blow everybody away. But at the same time, there is the right time that we announce these things. And with lessons learned from the roadmap, we also don't want to just be hyping for hype's sake. And we don't want to be, coming to you guys every week and saying, hey, we're going to do this next week and it's going to be great. We want to get into a really consistent place where, we're being transparent about what's coming. But then at the same time, we're also really showing you that we are delivering on these things. And the reality is these things do take time. They do take assets. And we're in that process. I shared a Cub on the main account this morning. Ash has got a plan waiting for him to show how we're thinking about, rolling out the next batch. So, just please know we are working very hard on finding the balance of sharing Cubs, getting you guys excited. I want to start to be able to share a lot more around, the story of Glitch. Somebody referenced the comic earlier on. I cannot wait to share all this stuff with you. We'll do it in the right way. And we're going to try really hard to do it in a way that we don't also spoil that surprise. We could show you every single Cub like right now. But then where's the fun in that when you get the airdrop and you already know what your Cub's going to look like? So yeah, that's kind of the thinking going in. I just want to acknowledge that it is something that we are giving a lot of thought and discussion to internally. And I think I can say we're going to really find that balance as we go forward. And there is not going to be another long 10-day silence before you hear anything.
I think that's the one issue a lot of Lions are having, and I just want to piggyback off of what Kyle said. I think everyone understands these things take time, and everybody who's a Lion holder believes that the Lazy Lions, is this massive project and is for the long term. So to keep that hype, like it doesn't have to be maybe a sneak peek of a new trait every week or every few days. But even like to mix it in, like, 1 week we get a sneak peek of a new trait, and then the next week we get a little glimpse of Glitch a little bit more, or a little bit more of his story, a tiny bit, nothing that gives away too much. We still have, the guessing of what's to come, when is it going to drop, but every week we get a little bit a little bit more, and it keeps that hype going, and it keeps people interested, keeps people from, yelling at each other about channels and discords because everyone's excited for what's to come. So
I
just
actually have
Yeah.
I have a suggestion that I've seen pretty successful in other communities I'm in to keep things going in between releases. And it has a lot to do with still creating value for the community uh, in any different. So it could be allow list, it could be giveaways, it could be free trials to like Nansen or like an NFT intelligence platform. I think that a lot of projects that they maintain their floor value while they're building by creating lots of value for their holders that may not be hyping the project and then, buy the hype, sell the news, right? Like I understand that you need to build in quiet sometimes, but I think that in between those cycles, there's so much value that can be created for the community. And Lazy Lion Discord isn't really where I come for that kind of value, just because there isn't really that kind of value being created.
They're both great points, and I really appreciate that, and I really recognize that. When we talk about the Cubs drop, and then we talk about NFT NYC, and then we talk about the other things that are on the roadmap that are coming down the line. What's really important is how do we keep people engaged in between? And you're absolutely right; it is about delivering value. I think that's why Ash is, so keen to, keep really reinforcing that message that we are investing in the team first and foremost, and more resources allows us to jump into a lot more and deliver a lot more for the community. It's been a very small team. It's still a very, very small team, but with more resources comes more ability to dig into these things, prioritize these things, work with our strategic partners, and consistently deliver that value. And that's exactly why I've come on board. It's exactly the kind of things that we're talking about internally, and it's exactly the long-term plan that we have to roll out to you guys. I think I made a point in the Medium article that came out this week. Everything that we really do from this point forward, we do have that long-term narrative around the Lions, around the Cubs, around the Bungalows, around the Lionesses, around some of the other amazing things that we as an organization are actually building. Everything needs to have a purpose, and everything we do needs to link, deliver value, and push that story forward. So I really appreciate the candor and the feedback around these things. And it's also quite reassuring to hear that the things you guys are asking for are actually things that we are actively planning right now, and I promise we're going to be delivering on in the coming days and weeks.
I have another quick question. It was more about the Cubs. Hopefully everybody can hear me. The gutter cat process over the past few months. And I really liked the way that they allowed you to clone your pieces, or you could like roll it and create a new piece. And I think that did a really good job of maintaining secondary market value of the gutter juices themselves. Because my fear would be that with the milk and the juice, if you need to have a lion in order to use that, then that would depress the secondary value because non-holders won't be able to buy them. So I'm curious if we've thought about making the juices and the milk something where you can actually use it without a lion, spawn a new cub unto itself, so that there's a new entryway for new people outside of an allow list.
I'm sorry. Let me just make sure I understood the gist of that, because the audio was a little choppy. Ash, did you catch that?
It's about, I heard gutter juice. That's what I heard, and then it sort of cut off a bit.
So
But
yeah.
So the gutter
question.
gutter
We can
juice
talk
had
about this topic, but we just want to, just in the interest of time, because I know we've just hit the hour and a half, which is what we promised. This has been a really good discussion, so I just want to make sure, like everyone who's on here, this has been really good. So I'm happy to, let's keep going. I don't want to cut it off right now because I think there's still a lot of fruit for everyone. So we'll keep going for I think at least another half an hour. But just everyone like listening in, like this is right now at the hour and a half, but that's okay. We're going to be extending this for at least another half hour. But yeah, sorry, King, go on.
Yeah, I was, just to be clear, to simplify it, I think that the gutter juice was successful because you could use it without having to own a gutter cat. So I'm curious if we've thought about allowing the milk and juice to be something that can be used by non-lion holders to create cubs, so that there's a good secondary value for them on the market.
Sure, we thought about that and we chose against it. Like that's not how the drinks work. You will need a lion But there is that inherent supply and demand of, you know, the drinks, the amount of combinations, and the actual, you know, the people wanting to use those. Because for every line, there's 2 combinations. There's 20,000 combinations. There's 10,000 drinks. Some people in the community will want both inherently, hence the supply and demand. Just to go back to Cubs, Coinbase. I know that was something that came up quite a bit. Is that anyone, you know, who's up here right now, you know, wants to ask or discuss?
I did want to ask, about a allow list if I could.
Yeah, sure.
So 2 things with that, just for a lot like chances for line holders to get on the allow list. And I understand it's tough because we want to, increase our ecosystem, get more people in here, and I totally get that. I'm all for it. But kind of like something, I think it was Timo who said it, something drawn up where maybe if you owned a lion in a bungalow, or maybe even if you've, some way to track if you've held a lion for X amount of time, or maybe all Diamond Paws get a raffle of like 50 slots. Is that something that could possibly happen? Or is that kind of like a little bit still taking away too much from the spots that are open?
I think that's interesting, and that's something I actually want to get a lot of views on. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that's an interesting dynamic that you just spoke about, where we reward, almost like the longer holders of lions. I'm going to give my thoughts on this. I don't want to, like plant this in anyone's head and like remove some of the fruit that we can get from this discussion. I'm curious to get the community's feedback too. I think there's that inherent problem where if you reward the holders who have, kept their lines for the longest, there are a couple of problems. Number one, people move around with wallets, so there's that technical difficulty of actually tracking it, and people who private deals, so it's not as easy actually on the technical side. Just so we're all across that, but that's the nerd speak. The other thing is there's that inherent thing of, yes, they've held on to their lines the longest. They might have if they held it since mint, that means they obviously got it at a lower price if the floor has jumped up. So then you're almost punishing people who are coming in later because you're rewarding the people who have held it the longest. So then you almost create that stigma of like, if that's the culture that we cultivate, should people not buy lions because they've missed the boat? And then we might be hurting ourselves with volumes. Like, I don't want to ruin anyone's perceptions, and there might be good reasons as to why we should, but just keeping that in mind, I'm curious to get the community's thoughts, and anyone on this call, should we look to reward long-term holders of lions? Like, should that actually be a thing?
I think having it's not so much like you've held it for so long, so you're for sure going to get it. Although that does bring me to my second point, but I'll touch on that in a second. But more so like a raffle. So it could be, a Diamond Paws, utility, where you give us whatever 50, 100, whatever it may be, slots to raffle off, and you have to be a Diamond Paw member. Now you don't have to be a long-term holder to be Diamond Paws, and you're still a valuable member of the community. And it's just kind of like a little extra perk. But what I will say, and I've kind of I keep messaging about this in the Discord, but I think the pre-launch pride should be rewarded with an allow list spot. But that's just my opinion. I don't know what are your thoughts on that?
I think the pre-launch pride, that's an interesting one. I think maybe but I think it probably just comes down to how many there are in there.
Right. Right. And there's not that many of us left in there, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's something we should probably look at off the call, at the amount and if it makes sense to. But I'm just curious to get the community's overall thoughts as well on like rewarding long-term holders. But I'm not seeing too much feedback.
Hello.
Hey, Toon. How's it going, King?
What's up, man? How are you?
Good.
Is this the time to bring up? I wasn't here because my audio is all fucked up. I have some frustration I'd like to speak about around 20 minutes ago. Can I bring that topic back up, or is that not the time?
Around which topic, sorry?
Over promising and under delivering.
That's we can talk about that. Yeah, we can talk about that. Go for it. Because this
Cool.
does have to do with Cubs. And
Yeah,
in terms of
it also stems
just to
into a bunch of
clarify
other
for everyone in the
conversations.
chat as well, this is more about so over promising, under delivering, because obviously that is subjective as well. But keen to get your thoughts on it. But this is more about announcing things before they come out, and then it's delivered. Like that's inherently what we're talking about here. Like announcing things before they come out, then they're delivered, and then sometimes it doesn't match the expectations, right?
Sure, and I think that the most important part is that you guys create the expectation for the most part, and I think that
Mhm.
for the roadmap especially, we can all agree that was a mess. And I think, and my fear is that you guys have been advertising Cubs for a very long time, and we just got us one sneak peek. I think it was about a week ago, and what that did was it created a lot of hype. It created a lot of people outside with the allow list. Which, first of all, I disagree with. I think you guys should reward holders for holding for the long term, or else you're not incentivizing holding whatsoever. You're incentivizing flipping. And the problem is, when you guys hype something up for so long, hype can only last for so long. We can use Moonbirds as an example. It just pumped all the way to 40, now it's going back down. Hype only lasts, it's a flavor of the week. And when you guys are hyping up Cubs for so long, I think Hazel was an amazing person to bring up. I love her perspective that she's trying to find everything for the right time. I commend that. My issue is that you guys are going to keep doing it. I'm very scared of that. And I think that one of the biggest problems with this is that the only thing that's holding this product up right now is the community. I don't think it's the team. I don't think it's the delivery. Sorry, that's my opinion. I got banned for saying my opinion. I probably got banned twice for it, but we'll say that for another time. The problem with the community holding this project up is that I don't think you guys respect the community as much as you guys should. I think that a lot of the decisions you guys made without a vote, I understand you guys are a business, and sometimes you guys got to make the tough decisions that you got to make. But to raise fees by the way you guys did, and then rewards giving us $7 for holding a several $1,000 asset for a month seems insulting. It seems that you guys shouldn't be able to say you reward your holders for getting dollars in the month. I think that a lot of the removing the marketplace from like the fees, all these should have been done with a vote from the community. And I understand that some things can't have a vote, but if you're not going to include the community in these types of decisions, and then remove the people that are frustrated with it from the Discord, and then not even care that one of the biggest holders, long-term holders, OG holders are leaving, and then Ashur saying, if it was Ashur, no, it's DJC who said, if you don't like it, then you're not for the long-term vision of the project, basically saying if you don't go with every single decision the project says, then you're not for the project. I just think that a lot of the things you guys are handling is not how you should be handling this kind of project, and that's my view on it. I think that a lot of things need to change, and I'm very not happy with the way you guys are. Honestly, the way everything's being handled, and I'd love to hear your feedback on that.
King, first off, like I appreciate you, King, and like I know this all comes from like a place of like passion, right? And I think that's something we'll have to keep in mind. Like, I love the fact that I'm one that like I've always just been like this. Like the fact that we're getting feedback from this, even if it's feedback about things that are not going so well, to me that just says that we have an extremely passionate community, and I get bullish on that, right? So like I love the fact that we've got so much passion in the community, and like King, like I thank you for like taking the time coming up and actually sharing those views. I just want to make sure, because obviously we've got everybody in the community listening too, just to make sure that we're breaking these down into actual things we can talk about. So it feels like you've touched on the roadmap, and how that went and the success, and you've got your views on that. There was also about over promising and under delivering. I think some of these things we've already spoken about, so just in like the interest of time, maybe I'll give my thoughts, and then we can maybe spend some more time on the other topics. Not respecting the community, I'm curious to get your thoughts on. We'll come back to that. Making changes without votes, specifically the fee increase, the impact that rewards is still having, and then also OG holders leaving and not seeming that we don't really care about it, and obviously people from the team, and obviously the moderators or volunteers, they're amazing. The raw kings and queens as well, like they're tremendous. They're doing this out of their own free time as well. And the reason being, obviously, like we do have paid for staff members as well. So OG holders leaving. Okay. The first one with the roadmap, I think we did touch on this. I think that could have been dealt with better in terms of the follow through. I agree. I think it then left a sour taste in probably the greater community's mind. Something that's a bit harder to quantify, I think, even with data. But overall, like in terms of like the impact that the roadmap had and like where we were before, I think it was successful. And like the reason being, it brought in about 6,500 volume, which was I think our second biggest month. It brought in a ton of activity in the Discord and like the social metrics on Twitter as well. I think the only thing missing from that campaign was probably the follow through. But I'm keen to hear if you think there was anything else. Like, was it the fact that obviously like the floor price did dump a bit, but even though it went to a new average, I would say. But besides that part, was there anything else with the roadmap that was disappointing?
I think that what did you mean when you guys were saying we're coming to change everything? Because the only thing that changed was the price going down.
I think that's probably a bit of like a simplistic view on that. It was just the floor price that went down. I think a few things changed. What we meant by that is the antagonist is coming to shake things up, and he's going to change the story of the Lions, and that's going to impact us in many ways. Whether it's obviously we just released the fact that we're going to be doing comics. It's an integral part of the story. It's the reason why the Cubs are coming into the ecosystem. So that's what we meant by the antagonist is coming to change everything. And while the floor price did go down a bit, it did go to a new average high, like for that period anyways. So overall, it was actually quite positive.
I understand. A big sentiment in this.
I think the thing with the roadmap was just because I've seen this feedback from the community, and I'm keen to see what else we can do to make sure that the community feels like is being heard. And I think these spaces definitely go a long way. I'm just looking at some, like, as I've seen the feedback from the community too. The roadmap actually did come from community feedback. Like, we weren't planning on doing the roadmap initially. We were just going to list things on the website and then just update it as we go. But the community, gave us a lot of feedback, and some of the members on this chat right now, we're people who like strongly gave feedback from about the roadmap. And like, I hope you don't mind, like, Greg, I know you're up here, and this is a positive thing. I remember you were really passionate about it. We had a really good conversation about this in DMs as well, and I agreed with you. Like, I came out of that thinking, he's actually got a lot of, like, there was a lot of data that suggests that we should be doing this. We went back, spoke about it with the team, and we're like, yeah, this is probably a thing that we should do. And I'm actually glad that we did it. Whether or not the execution, the follow through was there, maybe not, but overall, I think it was a really positive thing. So that's why we did the roadmap anyways. The overpromise thing, that's an interesting thing that we're just talking about now. I'm not 100% sure on what we should be doing.
No one can hear you, brother.
I'm just gonna... Okay, hopefully it's a bit better now.
I want to say, a big sentiment, it's actually two things, but a big thing in this project is a sentiment of roars over floors, because you guys are a long-term project. Now, how do you expect to be a long-term project if nobody values you more than sappy seals, for example? I'd love to hear. Like, it's very hard for me to understand a long-term sentiment. You want to be a long-term project when no one values you the way you want to be valued.
I think value is an interesting
thing. Sense.
It's I don't think I fully understand. So is the issue that we're not as high valued as, like, what determines value and who's valuing us? Are you referring to the?
What depends value. We want to be a blue chip, don't we? Right? Is that's obviously the end goal, is to be a blue chip top project.
I'm sorry, but you sound like a moon boy. Like, in this whole thing, I mean, to defend.
Let me make something clear that I've been in this project for over 6 months. There's nothing I want to see than this project succeed. And so I'm not bashing the project. I'm trying to ask these questions to bring some light to these topics that I feel are getting pushed to the side. So I'm not really sure what your point is, brother.
just so with that, so are you referring to the floor price? Just so we're clear on it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Cool. And so what do you see the issue with where it's at right now? Like, is this in terms of like your personal expectations for where it should be for what are we saying here by like the floor price? Like, what are we all disappointed by the fact of where the floor price is? Are we saying it should be a lot higher? Why should it be a lot higher? What's
Yeah, no worries.
what difference will make?
So, appreciate the respect with the way everyone's speaking for the most part. To answer your question, I think a big thing is that in a lot of communities I'm in, whether that be the BAYC community, whether that be Doodles, whether that be all these communities that I'm speaking in, the sentiment for Lions is anything but good. And when you bring up the name Lions, people react with a like a laughing emoji, or they say like the sentiment is not good. And the reason being is at the end of the day, $3,000, it's that's a lot of money. In this space, a lot of the successful products are not that price, and there's no blue chip with that price. And when you're not a certain price that people look at, and it's like, damn, that's an exclusive community, that puts a sentiment on the project where it's not a blue chip, it's not a respectable project. And when you guys say roars over floors every time someone brings up a frustration with the way the project is valued, I don't think that's a way to approach it. And I think that I know the devs don't control the floor price. The floor price is controlled by the lowest lister, but a lister would not list it at that price if they valued it higher. And I think a lot of the values that the reason it's not being valued is because we're getting, for example, almost 10% fees, $5 a month in income for holding the project, a downward momentum with the price. A lot of I don't know on the top of my head right now what could fix this. I'm just trying to express my views that this product is not being valued at. Before I left this, I'm trying to make this clear so everyone can really understand me. Before I left this Discord and started expanding myself to other communities, I was in such an echo chamber where Lions were the only project. Lions are the only amazing project in this space. And once you really extend yourself and take yourself out and put yourself in other communities, you really understand the sentiment that Lions have in the NFT space. And I want it changed. I really want it changed. This is my fate. No matter what product I'm in, I'd rather these succeed than mutants. I want Lions to succeed more than anything. And it really pains me to see the sentiment that Lions have in the whole entire space. And it pains me that when I bring my frustrations in the Discord, I have mods like DJC and Aaron that completely banned me for expressing my frustrations. DJC saying, if you don't agree with what you're saying, then you're not for the project, and all you want to do is, all you care about is your bag. I think a lot of things need to be changed to increase the sentiment in the market. And that's going to in turn increase the floor price. And to say that we can't control the floor price, I don't think is that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think the reality is, King, like we don't control the floor price, like you said. And I just want to share my views on this, like as transparent as I can, because I'm seeing, points about this as well, about people saying, well, hey, you really need to care about the floor price and not. It's like, from our point of view, like everything that we're doing is to try and make this a successful project, right? Like we want, that's our goal. And, I'm not going to come here and be like, we're going to be a successful project. I've got my own beliefs and, my own confidence and cockiness, but I'm keeping that to myself because I'm not that, I'd prefer we just build and then we show it, right? Of course, we want this to be successful, right? And does that mean it's a higher floor price? Is that what success is to the community? We would love for everyone to be like that, and for this to moon and everybody just, some people can cash out and, retirement and whatever it is, right? And financial freedom. Of course, yes. My thing is, we can't focus on the floor price, right? As if that's the number one important metric to the project, and that's all that we're focused on, then I don't think that's going to lead us in a good way. Right. If we make that the core focus of the project for the community as well, I don't think we're going to end up in a good position. Right. And that's not to say that we don't want it to go up overall. Yes, of course, if that was for everyone, we'd love for that to happen. But my point is that just can't be the number one focus. Like that's the
Sure,
reality.
I agree 100%. And it's this chat has been wonderful, and you've answered so many great questions. And I'm just gonna take from this, like what Toon's saying is, yeah, he's concerned about floor price, but I think the biggest thing I heard him say there was the sentiment of Lazy Lions, the way that people view Lazy Lions. That can be changed. We can change that by continuing to execute, doing big things. Now we have Hazel here, and I think the sentiment will change. I think when when the pride shows up at NFT NYC, I think that sentiment will change. I think people will see us differently, and I think there's been a lot of concern. I've heard a lot of the stuff I've heard today. People come up and they're like, "Why don't Lazy Lion holders get allow list spots?" And to me, I'm like, "You're getting milk and juice. You're getting one." So to me, it seems slightly greedy, that answer there. And I think there was just some confusion in the beginning, because I also thought the same thing. I was like, "Oh, how do I get an allow list spot? Because they're giving these away." But then you realize you don't need one as a Lion holder. And I understand people want more. So that's just something I took. So Toon, I like that you brought this stuff up. I know that you're in other things, and I know the sentiment can be changed, and that all starts with us. Something I always preach is Lions equal love, and we need to spread more of that. We need to be positive in this space. And I hear lots of complaining and stuff today on this call, and that's kind of what this is about. But let's also spread some positivity, and let's talk about good things. There have been so many great things in this project.
Yeah,
And if you met
definitely.
some of these people in real life, like I went to the Sacramento Kings basketball game, and that was incredible to meet fellow Lions. That's real life utility. Something like that can change the sentiment and the way that people view this. The first NFT project to partner with an NBA basketball team, incredible. And I know that there's so much more we can do.
No, I completely agree. And something I'd just like to input, one thing AR told me that I should probably do is maybe add some positivity. So, let me make something clear. Sean, I don't know how to pronounce your name. No one's spreading negativity. We're bringing constructive points. If you think I'm sounding like a brat, speak up. And one thing that I will say is that this project has absolutely changed my life, and I'm forever grateful for Lazy Lions, the connections that I've made, the people that I've met. I have learned so much, and the reason that I am where I am right now in this space is because of Lazy Lions. The first few months in this project were probably one of the happiest I've ever been, so I'd like to say that I was very grateful for finding this project. Don't get me wrong, my points aren't to by any means FUD or FUD or however you want to say it. That's my point is because I'm trying to figure out everyone's thoughts on my thoughts and see where we can come to a medium. But I do want to end my rant with saying this product is one of the best things that ever happened to me, and I'm forever grateful for finding it.
Yeah. And I like that. And I love how everyone's, I think this is the part that sparks, I think, a lot of heat, which is fine, because I think it's great to have these conversations, but it's like, I've seen a few posts about this in the community just then as well. We care about floor price. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Like people, you can straight up just say, I only look at this as a financial instrument and I only look at it as an investment. Here's my view. I've already shared it. And if you don't agree with it, that's fine. Let's please not assume that, what I care about is not what I'm saying. Like, don't make up assumptions like that. I don't appreciate that. If you guys only care about the floor price, okay, that's fine. Let's be realistic about it. But then you can't also come and say, this is a really passionate thing for me, I think, because we're almost, if you guys care about the floor price, but we're focused on building the project and building the community, I think we're at inherently, there's some beef that we're going to be sparking up because our focuses are not aligned. And I think if you looked at other projects, you could easily spot the ones that are focused on floor price. I think they do strategic decisions that really align with increasing the floor price. I think there's a few obvious signs, like tokens and staking, for example. And those are two things that we have not done yet. And I've explained my reasons as to why. And there's nothing wrong with trying to just focus on making money, but that is not the project that we're building here. And I've given my reasons as to why we're not focused on that. Not to say we don't want the floor price to go up. This is where I want to be clear. It's not like we're trying to do things to make the floor price go down, right? But it's like the floor price is not the number one thing that we care about. And there are projects where that is the number one thing that they care about. I guarantee you, they're easy to spot out, but that's not our project. And I've tried to say that, communicate that from day one. We've been, I like to think that we've been transparent about this in our core values as well. But obviously some people are still here because they're looking at the floor, and that's fine because NFTs right now, yeah, there is a ton of speculation and people are just trying to flip and make money, and that's totally okay. But I if I have to keep repeating this, then I will, but that's not the core focus, and I've given my reasons as to why. Um, so like that's just the reality of it. I think if we had have been focused on the floor price, you guys would have seen strategic decisions from us that would have aligned with that a lot earlier. Why would we have done collectibles and not just release staking? Why wouldn't we have released the token earlier instead of focusing on community and initiatives and partnerships and things like that?
Celebrities.
And celebrities, yeah, absolutely. Why would we have said, we're not? And I know this comes from a bit of a defensive point of view. This does, I am passionate about this because I feel like there is a difference right now. And I know it's a very touchy subject, which is why I'm trying to make sure that I'm very clear with my communication. So apologies if I'm not. I'll be in the chat later as well. But I just want to be as transparent as possible as to why we haven't done those things and why other projects have. And maybe that's not the right thing. And you guys, I agree. There needs to be a focus on the short term. There does need to be a focus on the short term as well. And hopefully you guys can see, with the investments that we're making in marketing, with the people that we're bringing in the team, we are trying to focus on that as well.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to go. Never mind. So, but go on.
One thing that I want to say about the floor price and as well as the long term goals and everything is that I think what Toon is trying to say about the floor price is that with better execution and less over promising and under delivering, that the floor price would go up. And obviously I want the floor price to go up, but I want I'm more into it for the long term goals. So I think those things do correlate with each other.
It's interesting because it's okay, in that case, I think there's a wider discussion to be had, and we're probably now moving off topic a little bit. This is probably more about the company insights, I would say, and where decision making goes into priorities. Are people not happy with how does everyone feel about the things that we have done in Q1? And I don't think it's fair to say, oh, nothing's been done. Let's be realistic about what has been done, because obviously there have been things that are done. How do we feel about those? For example, the partnerships, with NBA. Would we have preferred that we didn't spend time on securing things like that and we had to done other things instead? I'm curious. We should probably open up a discussion like that.
One thing. So one thing about the NBA thing, it was great. I loved it, but there was after the tickets were given out, people thought that it was just that. If the team had communicated more to come with this partnership, then it would have been a bigger deal to the NFT community as a whole, as opposed to some people kind of just thought it was just tickets. But I thought that it was great, and I thought that you guys have been doing great things. I just think that there can be things that can be done better.
Mm-hmm. And so, hey, King. For sure, absolutely. Yeah.
People into the marketplace and into the community, and there's nothing to deliver off that roadmap. Now they left. I would love to see the numbers of how many of the wallets that came in that month have dissipated out of the community, because we're not going to get them back. And then the way that they say, oh, I joined the Lions, they promised, they hyped up. Where I got so frustrated is that we're going to be in the end of Q2, and nothing of the major milestones off the roadmap have been accomplished. So then I become really worried, are they going to be able to execute Cubs, Lions, and tokens now realistically by December 31st? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think it's interesting with that, right? Because so you're saying the Cubs are going to be released before Q2. We've made that clear. They're coming out before Games one, right? So that's coming out. That's obviously a major release. The first month, I mean, the first quarter, or the first, since now, the things that have been released, they do take a lot of time. Like we mentioned, like even things like with the NBA, these things do take a lot of time. Like you mentioned, biz dev is not something that can just be done in an hour or two. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of man hours that go in. So these aren't simple things. That's just the reality of it. Which is why I think there's probably different views on this in the community. Some go, yeah, those were awesome, and then some go, well, wait a second, it was just the spaces and some tickets. Like that's pretty, that should have been done a lot easier. Like that shouldn't take that much time. When it's the reality, it's like, well, the magnitude of what that actually means, it took a lot of time. My gut feeling says if the floor price had have gone up based on that news, we'd probably be getting different views on the impact of that. But like it's just the reality. These things do take time. So there's things that have come out, or like now they take time, which I know, like at the end of the day, like the market doesn't care about the amount of time that you put into things, for sure. And that's why when we look at things like volume, and volume probably not being where we want it to be, then it's like, okay, let's do a retrospect, and were those things that we should have spent time on? And we'll learn from that. And it's like moving forward, maybe partnerships aren't a place that we put a ton of time into, and that's totally fine, right? Like it's a new space, we're all learning things and seeing what works. Maybe partnerships would have been worth it, worth putting the time in last year, right, compared to now. But it's like, well, these things take time as well. So it's like, there is a fine balance there, and obviously all we can do is just do our best, right, and see what works and see what doesn't work and make changes from there. But I think in terms of like, have we not done some of those major things? I think some of those already have come out. Cubs is going to come out later as well, this half. So then it leaves the Raw token and Lionesses, right, from your point of view, as the two major things. I would actually say there's another very major thing on there, which is the play to earn game and the announcement around there, right? And those are things that I don't want to share about. We can't share about right now, but obviously those are things that were also being worked on as well. So I would argue that there are other things. I can confidently tell you that yes, like those are things that right now that we are planning to be coming.
So
in terms of like,
so you can confidently say that those major tasks will be wrapped up and complete and executed and delivered by December 31st, 2022.
of course, King. Yes, we can definitely say that. And I would hope, like, if there has been any doubt on that, I'd want to know where that comes from. If it's like you said, just from the fact that the Q1 we spent all that time on partnerships, they just didn't have the impact. But again, like those were major things in my mind. I would say the partnerships were actually X amount harder than doing something like a token drop or a Lioness drop. Actually, those are those are way easier than doing biz dev deals. Like that's the reality of it. But I know that like for most people, it's not super clear. Again, this comes from communication too, and I'm happy to do things maybe in retrospect, so we're not spoiling the news, but maybe once it's done, happy to share with everybody and just be transparent and like the work that goes into it. That could probably be a fun spaces that we do, like a chat, and be like, hey guys, this is what actually, like a look behind the scenes in retrospect in the work that went into it.
Hey, I have one more thing. I want to just say one thing that I feel that the conversations are much more respectful when they're voice to voice. So I appreciate that. I feel that they're much more hostile over Discord. So I appreciate the voice to voice. One thing that I'd like to say about one last thing is I wish that we'd be a little lighter on the censorship. I think that many longer term holders that have been here when it was less strict feel that we can't speak our minds as often, and it's declared as FUD or it's declared as negative talk when it's really just us expressing our feelings out of passion and a lot of times constructive. And I think I would hope that maybe we can at some point pull back on that censorship or sensitivity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, look, like my gut inherent feeling is like whenever we, I get that kind of feedback, I sort of cringe a little bit, not at you, but at ourselves, because I'm like, damn, if we're known as being, as having censorship in we're a Web3 project, I feel like that inherently there's something wrong, right? So I don't you should take that as me taking this very seriously. That being said, like the mods have I think a very, very, it's not an easy job, right? Like we got to be clear on that as well. I think the mods do not have an easy job. They have my trust as well.
I wouldn't want to be a mod here.
Right. So, and we also have that fine balance of like we don't want it to be a completely, like we have to be aware of people coming into the Discord. They don't want it to be completely negative. That being said, obviously it doesn't have to be, no one's asking for fake positivity. Like, like we're not, we don't want everyone to come in and be like, happy days, hands up in the sky. This is all going to be great. No, but at the same time, we just don't want it to be like completely negative because then people won't want to enter the Discord as well. So it's like, how do we create, channels where that feedback can be passed on in a meaningful way? And maybe it's spaces like this that we have with the community more often.
Yeah.
But I definitely hear
I
you.
appreciate the communication. I think that it's much more productive. It's less hostile. It's much more respectful voice to voice. So I appreciate that. I'll definitely learn more from this conversation than I ever have in the last 2 months over text. So appreciate it.
There you go. And maybe that's one of the action items that comes out of this, guys, that we have more of these. And I know the spaces that we've been doing, we've gotten some feedback about that, where it's just like a rehash of updates. That the reason we did that was feedback from the community as well. But again, like we said, like we're all learning in this space. So maybe we just go back to doing pure AMAs with the community, and maybe we just keep it in Discord. I think that's an action item that I'll take from this, and we'll like have a chat with the team and maybe even bring it up to the community, maybe as a vote. So Aaron, if we could note that one down as well, please. I know, guys, we're now like 2 hours and 10 minutes. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I think we've still got quite a bit of people who are still online. I'm more than happy to keep going for maybe until the half an hour, just so we can cross off that point, because I feel like there is still a lot of fruit coming from here. But I just want to be like respectful of everyone's time. We are going to try and keep, we are going to post a summary of what's been happening here. It's not going to be a detailed summary, so it's probably worth, listening in again. But the action items will be posted in any relevant votes or discussions with the community that need to take place, and Aaron's going to keep that list going. So, with that,
I gotta jump. I look forward to shaking your guys' hand in June. Have a nice day.
Absolutely. Thanks, King, for coming up.
Tune, likewise, man. Thank you. We appreciate your insight. I look forward to building together. So if you want to change that sentiment, that's something we do as people. So let's do it.
Yeah. The next thing that I'd just like to move over to, I think is important, and we touched on it a little bit with the partnerships, just to give this a bit more time, is the roadmap updates and the open discussion. Again, my preference with all these things is that we come out with more actionable items. I think we've already come out with some that, are going to take some time to do anyways. And it's not like we need to come out with, 10, 20, 30 of these things. I think just one meaningful action item from this call would be successful. And I feel like we've already got a couple of those. So we don't need to come out of this with action items for the sake of it. But the more that we can that, will have an impact and be beneficial, then let's just keep that in mind. So with the roadmap, again, anybody who wants to come up and speak about things, a couple of the topics are obviously just the main points on the roadmap. So Lions Den, VR chat, merchandise, JT,
Ashur,
collectibles.
quick question that I had before that whole spew was, what I was curious for the growth of the community was for the allow lists. So I guess now from my understanding is so people that are non-holders of Lions, if they get an allow list spot for their juice or for their milk, they have to then buy a line to actually use it. Is from I guess that's what I was trying to initially came up to ask, because I got confused from that.
No. So just to clarify on that, that's not the case. Every Lady Lion holder, we will airdrop, and by airdrop, I mean
that I know that. I mean, I meant that I know. What I meant was the allow list for like non-Lazy Lion holders.
No, that's totally fine, King. So I'm just going to clarify this for everyone listening in the call, because they might still have some questions. So I'm just going to answer it in entirety. So every Lazy Lion holder will be airdropped a drink, meaning we will cover the gas. It will appear in your wallet. You'll get a random one of 3 drinks, which will give different versions of your cub based on the same traits, or you might get a 1 of 1. Now, for that to happen, you will need a lion. And of course, if you've been airdropped it, then unless if you sold your lion right after you got the airdrop, then you should be okay. You should be able to get a cub. If you're on the allow list or you're part of the public sale, when you go to mint, you will just get a cub straight up with random traits that will be a new combination of traits.
Oh, okay.
So you might be able to get a crown. You might be able to get a lazy hat. It'll be totally random, and it'll be a new set of unique traits.
Gotcha.
Combination traits. Same traits, unique combination. Sorry, guys.
No, you're fine. Because whomever asked earlier, I got confused. I thought, because like I said, I hold a line, but I was just curious because my big thing before the whole thing is like the growth of the community. Which my apologies to you guys when I jumped in because I got frustrated because I understand constructive criticism and I appreciate his passion, and I definitely don't want to argue up here with him. But me personally, when I'm coming with an issue, I know I'm not any part of the team in the sense, but we're all investors in this project if we hold a line. So I feel as if we're going to come up with constructive criticism, at least to follow through with what we believe could be better. So that's why I got frustrated at that point, which I apologize to you guys. But when I initially came up was to ask because the growth, because I want to see this, because I have a lot of friends who want to be a part of the community but can't afford what the floor is right now. And I would love the floor to be a lot higher, but I know this is a long-term thing, and I've seen the roadmap and a lot of the stuff that you guys have planned. And I think the biggest thing I took out of this was and from hearing from the OG holders was just better communication within, the next, like if like certain stuff that you guys announced and not go silent about it, which I think you guys have fully understood and gotten out of this. And I think you've held up well. I think bombarding with what you want to, I don't know. I think change also comes with respect of how you come about it. So that's just because Toon said he wants voice to voice. So I was just frustrated on that. But yeah, that's good to clear about the Cubs. So this way I at least can tell friends who want to get a part of it that if they get a list or if they're able to get a supplement to be able to get a juice or a milk, that they're able to get a Cub, because I was confused before. I thought you just had to be a line holder.
No, so that's not the case. You'll be able to get if you're going in the public sale or the allow list, you will get a Cub straight up, based off of a new combination of traits. But it's good to clarify.
Do we know? I don't know if it's announced yet. Do we know a supply?
No, we haven't announced those details, King. I just want to stick to the topics if that's okay. This will be the last one.
That's fine.
For sure. So just before we, I think we'll go for 10 minutes on the roadmap. So any of these items, whether it's Coinbase, whether it's Lion's Den, any questions anybody wants to ask, I prefer I don't just, answer, speak on updates on any of those things. Just any topics, any discussion topics that people want to bring up right now if you're up in the AMA.
Can I ask about partnerships? And I'm sorry if we covered this because I just signed on about a half hour ago, but do we have any more information, Ashur, on kind of what the partnerships mean? And what I'm saying is, like, I love what we're doing with the partnerships. I love the Coinbase stuff. I love the Puma stuff. I love the King stuff. When I think of partnerships, I view that like we have mutual interests, and I understand there's issues with non-disclosure and different agreements and stuff that has to be signed. But I think across the community, sometimes there's a lot of confusion about what the partnership means, what it entails, and just thinking of ways that we can message that better to our holders and future holders.
For sure, King. Yeah, we can definitely talk about that because that's about the roadmap, and it's probably a good chance to talk about like Coinbase and things like that as well, because I know we've gotten quite a few questions about that and what it unveils, and like my answers to that in the past. With these things, like, yes, I've mentioned before, there are NDAs, and it's like if I can share information, then I will. And the reality is, like, if the team can, then they will as well, because they'll probably share the same information that I can. And if we can't, then we won't. Like, it's as simple as that. We're not going to put ourselves in a position where, if we can't answer the questions, we won't. There's also the additional thing of what we spoke about before, where, do we move into a culture of like surprise and delight rather than, sharing details or maybe just a little bit, and then over time, and that sometimes causes frustration because we're not super, we don't reveal everything, or sometimes if we do, it doesn't have the effect that we want. So I think there's that fine balance too. But I mean, let's talk about Coinbase. So yes, obviously we signed on a lot earlier, and I've heard the feedback of, well, hey, there's like 100 something projects now. I mean, that's up to Coinbase, like on, how many people they choose to partner with and have on their listings. For us, and like what we've discussed with Coinbase, like I can just say like it's meant to be more than just being listed on their platform. Obviously there is higher priority. You guys have seen the marketplace itself. Like we are like featured in part of the websites. It'll be rotated. on the main page, as well as like the personal accounts too. So there is that additional benefit of being a partner with them. And I mean, look, overall with these marketplaces, like even if it's not what people hope it to be, where it's, this massive new amount of liquidity that comes in on day one, whether or not it does or doesn't, I've got no, like we'll wait to see. My guess is as good as everybody else's. I'm not privy to any more information than anybody else is with this. But I think the reality is with all these new marketplaces that come in, and Coinbase isn't going to be the last one, from the traditional, like, if you're just looking at like crypto exchanges, they're not going to be the last ones that move into NFTs. I can tell you guys that much. Really, I think the reality is all of these will just be a new amount of liquidity that comes in, whether it's a rush on day one or just gradually over time, it'll be more liquidity that comes into the market, which is great for us all. So like, that's the reality of just being there. We are in discussions to do more than just that. Okay. And particularly around marketing. These things are not finalized yet. I cannot share the details beyond that. But there is that. So that's as much as I can share right now. But otherwise, it's pretty much what you guys see.
I really appreciate that, Ashur. Thanks for sharing. Love the fact that we're engaging with NDAs and fully understand why you're being cautious and careful about rolling things out. But that tells me you guys are doing a great job securing these partnerships with major brands. So love to hear it, and thanks for answering my question.
For sure, thanks, King. And to go one step further about Cubs, that was the intention. And, there were resources and time spent on this, just like you guys are thinking. That is, it's because that's still an option for us, although I think it's extremely unlikely just because of the work that's already been gone into it. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore because, as you guys know, and they've been transparent about this, which is why I can talk about it. Yes, they have a beta and they're saying it's 3 weeks. Like, we have to be realistic about how long these betas go for. And obviously we've got our own timelines. And, Cubs is almost ready to launch. So, we don't want to be dependent on someone else's timeline when they're not super sure of it. So that's the reason why it's most likely not going to be tied in with Coinbase, at least not the general release. So hopefully that clears it up. But yes, that was the intent. Yep. Sorry.
Is there going to be anything further with the Kings and Puma partnership? Like, you don't have to say what, but like if you can't, but like in terms of if there's going to be more down the line.
Yeah. So those are things that we're in discussions with them. And, I tried to make it as transparent as I could be with the community. Like, we had the spaces with the Kings. For anyone who wasn't on there, I'd recommend jumping on there. This was literally them themselves saying like, we want to be doing more things together, but the reality is, like, I know they didn't go out and say it, but the NBA moves really slow, extremely slow, which you can understand. Like, I think we can appreciate that as well. So yes, like, that's the intentions, and we're discussing with them. And Puma, same thing. We had their head of Web3, essentially. He was in the Ivan. He's been in the Discord. He's been part of the community, and we're in discussions with them as well, looking at doing things together too.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. The reality is with these things as well, like, these things do change. And, we are speaking with, billion-dollar organizations as well. Some of these are publicly traded companies too. And, yes, like Lazy Lions, like, in terms of volume and everything, it's established in that regard, but we're still dealing with these massive organizations, and their priorities change sometimes, right? Especially when, you're looking at the greater market too. So that's something to keep in mind with these biz dev deals.
Hey, can I make a quick suggestion?
Sure.
Like, sorry, I'm not a native speaker, so I hope I can bring my point across. But one key thing I think we could focus on is the evaluation of lazy lines by non-holders. Like, I think we have a pretty small ecosystem. Like, it consists of ducks, bubblegum kits and stuff. And those people, they highly value lazy lines. But I think many of you have seen these charts where people, where they rank NFT projects in terms of their blue chip ability. And more often than not, we're not even on it. And I think that's because non-holders don't value lazy lions so much. So I kind of got this feeling that we're a little alienated. And I would love, for example, for us to give out allow list spots to other blue chip projects so that people get interested in us and so that we provide value to them and they in terms to us. So that's one thing I was thinking about.
Mm-hmm. That's something that we're looking at as well, and like we are in discussions with other projects. I can't say whether like that's going to be done before, whether we are going to go ahead with that or not. But that is something that we're speaking with other projects about. We haven't put as much time into that compared to other things though. So maybe that's something that moving forward for future things that we look at doing more of potentially.
I have a
It's
quick.
something
Thank you.
to think about and determine whether it's worth the time and investment. Hey, King.
I have a quick question. Hey, Ashur. Quick question on like the VR chat and like the sandbox stuff. When I think about going back to the roadmap in end of January, I kind of expected that there was going to be periods of maybe weeks or 2 weeks we didn't get announcements here and there. We didn't have much hype. But I was really kind of expecting that kind of the VR chat and the metaverse stuff would start to develop during this period of time alongside of developing with Cubs and all the other announcements to kind of give this more community engagement that I don't think we've had over the past, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks, which has kind of been a little bit dry in my opinion.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so just not getting much discussion outside of Cubs and kind of getting where are we at on VR chat and sandbox, things that kind of bring the community together and engaging us in a different way than we are just in Discord. Can you kind of speak on that? Because I think that's kind of been lacking in my opinion. I think the metaverse and VR chat and experiencing different things in a new way with the people that we already hang out together every day anyways. So just kind of
Yeah.
having that experience during these kind of down slow periods while the team is building things in the longer term that can kind of keep us engaged in a different way that can continue to bring sentiment up. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I agree with you, King. Like in terms of like having that as an expectation, I think you're right in having that as an expectation. I think that's something that we probably haven't done. Like looking back at it, that's not something that we've done well with. Like you mentioned, like we probably could have, released things like the VR chat or had some other community events because inevitably there are going to be downtimes where we're not doing an announcement, or we're not in the middle of a major release. So it's like to have these kind of smaller updates, I guess you could say, come out then. Or things that aren't necessarily updates, but just community engaging events. I agree
Yeah.
with you. That's something we need to be doing more of for sure.
Yeah, and kind of like speaking at it at like a higher level. Like I think the last quarter has kind of been the partnership announcement in real life events season, and yeah, as that's nice because I was able to attend one. But I think that let's say 500 people attended over the last quarter one or two in real life events, which is really really great and it's a good experience. But I think that the VR chat and those other things would have been more engaging with 5,000 holders than just having 500 holders. So I think that's maybe why people feel a little bit left out and not being able feel engaged or valued in a sense. And so having those roadmap items that kind of get a broader reach of the 6,000 holders would be a good experience over the next 3 quarters as we look going forward. And I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. It's interesting, King, because it's like I agree, and like because of what we're trying to build here as well, I think those things are important. I think if we had to ask that community, like questions to the community, I'm just curious to get everyone's thoughts because, will those things impact certain metrics like floor price? Like we've seen a lot of talk about that right now in the chat. Like, will these smaller updates, like will VR chat releasing that, will that have an impact on the floor price at all? And those are the things I'm just curious to get the impact, thoughts from the community about, because if it doesn't, let's say we release these things, but it doesn't impact floor price at all. Do you guys care about it?
I mean, I can speak and then I'll let others go. I think the VR and the metaverse sandbox stuff like that would help us appreciate and just based off of our experiences alone internally. And I think it gives us more firepower when we reach outside of the Lazy Lion community. So I think that's what we're kind of struggling with. Because I know we're trying to do like the roars on Twitters and stuff like that, and which is great. But I think when we talk about NFT maxis or blue chip holders, I think we need more tangible stuff to be able to go and convince people to come into Lazy Lions. I think some of that VR chat, the metaverse, I'm like, hey, we just had a VR chat call. We're in Oculuses. We're doing a lot of different types of experiences. You need to come over here and experience that. When we don't have updates on these types of things, it's hard for us to go present this information or roadmap items to other NFT maxis or potential whales to come in and say, "Oh, I want to be a part of that." So I think that outside of Lazy Lions, that's where these tangible items become beneficial for us to roar on Twitter or to reach out to certain members of other projects that we can bring them into Lazy Lions, because I think that's the biggest struggle that we're having in trying to combat that sentiment. I think that's what Toon was trying to speak about, kind of putting the floor price aside. How can we combat the conversation when people are down on Lazy Lions and give them saying, "Hey, we're doing VR chat. We're not even doing that. We're not even doing that here. So you need to come check this out. This might be a good entry price to get a different experience." I don't think we have the ammo as a community to convey that message properly.
I'm curious, King, what about things like the NBA partnership? Like, is that not something that's very unique to to our project? I don't think anyone else has an official partnership.
Yeah, I actually think that was a very good one that just wasn't, I don't know, marketed very well. And I will use like the Twitter space, for example. I think it's kind of a wider issue other than the NBA partnership. So I'll use the Twitter space and the amount of people that we had on that call. I thought it was big, and I was like, man, we're gonna have 500, 600, 700 people there, and we're only still kind of continuously reaching this 200 people. I'm not sure how we get above that number. Maybe that's something that Hazel maybe have a different strategy to kind of bring out more people to attend, but it's more of an attendance thing and getting people focused on us for a period of time. I think it's unique and it should be continuously promoted. But I think it's the initial contact of when we tweet out something, we need to continue to get that engagement, because I think what we've done is we've roared on Twitter so much that some of it could be empty or not as full of information, that when someone looks at it, it's like, oh, okay, that's just an NBA partnership. It's not a big deal, and it should be treated as such. So I'm not sure what the answer is to that, but I think we're not reaching further enough outside of the Lazy Lion community. And so let's say we have 200 here in the Lazy Lion community. I think we should be getting another 200 people outside of the Lazy Lion community trying to figure out what we're doing. I just don't feel like we're reaching far enough. I don't know the solution. I've been thinking about it every single day. So a hard solution to get.
I think, I mean, for me, I think what the solution is, we need to put more focus on actually marketing the things that we are doing. Because like you said, like, the NBA partnership was huge. And like, in terms of people asking what value, I'm curious to know what value you guys want from this. I think in terms of like brand legitimacy and growing out the brand, I think that does a ton. But I think we could have marketed that a lot better. And I think the solution to that is, like what we've done. Like, we've got Hazel now in the team, and she's building out the marketing function, right? So we can push that message out there more, not just, to maybe even the Lazy Lion holders. I think maybe not even everybody in the community probably would have known exactly what that meant, but even to the wider community. So that way it can bring in things like volume and new blood as well. So I think if we do a better job of that, which is the intention, then I think, when people ask for value in terms of, exposure and effect that it has on the community and, brand recognition, I think these things will start to be a lot more fruitful.
Yeah. It's a tough question. I mean, I haven't been able to get the answer. I think a lot of people are still struggling and trying to figure out the answer to this one, and it's going to be tough. But I hopefully inspire some people that are listening in the chat to be able to take some time to think and put into ideas and feedback, and maybe it'll spark the right light bulb to really get a broader reach.
Sure. And one thing I do want to touch on as well, maybe before we wrap things up, because we have just hit the 2.5 hour mark. You mentioned, Sandbox, VR chat. I've seen a few people talk about NFT worlds. I think I saw a Decentraland comment as well. I just want to give my thoughts on this, right? Even, Other Side and all these things. from what we've seen, and this probably comes back to the fact, and I saw a few people mention this as well, like just as founders, like me and Nine, like we're massive gamers. I don't think I've ever hidden that fact. I mean, that's honestly the reason that that's the reason we actually got into NFTs, right? Like that's the reason I got into programming as a kid. Like that set me on my whole journey. Like that's just been at the core. We're massive gamers. We're nerds. It is what it is. I don't give a fuck. Like that's just the reality. That's who we are. From what we've seen, like in the space, and even things that we've made investments in, and obviously, like we're gonna try things, and not everything's gonna work. But from what we've seen, like I don't think anyone's hit the mark just yet in terms of like true like gaming experiences or like enjoyable experiences. So I think it's really hard for us to then justify going and purchasing like NFT worlds, right? Or something else like that. I'm not trying to shit on any project, but like just from like our own personal point of view, and this is even things that we've already put investments in. We just like if it's not going to be a very fun experience, if it's not a fun experience for me, it's not a fun experience for Nine. Like, how can we then go promote it to the community and be like, "Hey guys, like let's go jump on this. That we're gonna have a great time," when we don't really believe into it. Like, that's not something we can do, right? So I'm yet to see that, and I'm seeing a lot of projects try and tackle this with their own thing. I don't think anyone's hit the mark just yet, and I don't want to bet the future of Lazy Lions on the success of some other project, right? There's something inherently uncomfortable with that. I think Lazy Lions has so much more potential. I think blockchain media, everything has so much more potential than that. Like that's just our views. And if that means that we have to sell off some of the stuff that we've bought because we don't think it's going to be a good experience for the community, then like we'll do that. I've got no problem with doing that. I've got no problem at all with saying, hey guys, like, we thought this was going to be cool. Actually, after inspecting it a lot more, or because of recent changes, like it's just not going to be the experience that you guys want, so we're not going to do it. I don't have a problem with that. I think what I need to get better at, and we as a team will get better at, is communicating that to you guys. And I think this goes a long way. And I think I really do think we're just going to set more of these in the future as well. Because at the end of the day, like we want this to be successful, as I know you guys do as well. So, if that means we have to chop and change things, then we will. But yeah, I just wanted to share that because like that's my views when you were talking about things like Sandbox, and I saw a few comments about other ecosystems and things like that in the space as well. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on that too.
Do you mind if I ask? Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Sorry. Hi guys. It's Mama Bear. I just had a real fast question. I'm a bungalow holder. I do not have the liquid or capital to have a lion yet. But I have to tell you that it is an honor and a privilege to be able to afford a bungalow. And when I joined the chat as a bungalow holder, I felt like a rock star, and I told myself I wasn't going to get emotional about this, but I think it's easy to lose sight of the fact that there are only 10,000 lazy lions in the entire globe, and there are only, so it's exclusive in that regard alone. I happen to be friends with several L hats, and that's even more exclusive, in this entire world of lazy lionness. Their floor price is way far outside of my range. But I was granted a spot on the allow list, and which is like another like miracle blessing on top of, having a bungalow. And my question was regarding the cubs with the allow list. The juice and the milk provide you to be able to your lion that you hold, if you hold one, is able to go back and become a cub. And so, being that I don't hold a cub, where would that cub come from? And would that cub have the traits from the Genesis collection of lions, or would they be new, blends? And I have learned so much in multiple different communities, and there is nothing like the pride of the lazy lions, because when you guys roll in Twitter or role in any other partnership with any other NFT project, you guys roll deep and are a major force, which is why I want to belong to the Lazy Lions. And I know it can be hard and easy to get blindsided or get your vision off of what you already have as a community, because people have expectations of everyone else, and everyone else's expectations are different from yours. But I personally love the Lazy Lions. I love the entire atmosphere. I love that kings are greeted, queens are greeted, everyone is valued, and I guess it's not really much of a question now, except that it is a privilege and it is an honor, and I hope everyone else sees that, because right now my bags can only afford a bungalow. And in truth, in like full transparency, my brother gave it to me. So like that's a big deal. And so I'm here and I quote unquote belong, but I in a way feel like the stepchild that nobody really wants to claim. But I'm gonna own it because I'm in the bungalow channel, and hello, hear me roar. But if there was any I don't know if I missed the explanation about the Cubs and regarding where those Cubs would be generated from for the allow list holders. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your patience and being so gracious with everybody.
Queen, thank you so much for coming up. Chat, if you guys love Mama Bear, just drop a raw GIF in Cabana Bar right now, or even in general chat. Let's do it in let's do it in general chat.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you so much for coming up. So the question that you had was mainly around the new Cubs. What are they going to be based on? The traits. And happy to answer. This is probably a great way to close off as well. So if you go into the public mint, which includes the allow list, like that function, the amount that's there, it'll be a new unique combination of the existing traits. So meaning you could get, a cub with the trait that is the lazy hat. You could get one with the crown. You could get one with, the cap, with nothing, with a hoodie, whatever it might be. That'll just be randomly allocated, and we'll use. Like that. That's pretty much the answer. It'll be randomly allocated. So, Queen, that was awesome having you up. With that, I think that's a great way to just move into like a cap off of this AMA. Kings, Queens, I think we're almost coming up to 2.5. No, we've passed 2.5 hours. We're almost closer to 3 hours at this point. I think this was a really good chat to have. It probably tells me that we need to have these more regularly, because there was just so much to go through. Whatever we didn't cover in the Q&As, we're just going to go back and answer. I know this chat, maybe it was really, hopefully it was insightful, and it was everybody got a lot of value out of this either way, and you got the answers that you were hoping to, whether it was good or bad. Hopefully everybody just got answers. I'm just going to recap. So the first thing was channel removals that weren't announced far enough in advance. So the actionable item is we're just going to give more of a heads up of changes moving forward, and we're going to involve the community with those changes. Essentially better comms around that. The fee increase that was done for sustainability. The actionable item that we have off that is to vote on rewards and what we're going to do with it. So that way we can help manage fees. OG sentiment down. We're going to have a lazy vote with the Twitter space on like either public recaps or if we move to Discord direct chats. The bungalow utility, I think the discussion we'll have is with the community on more potential utility, but we've already we've discussed about the fact that it's going to be included in a raw token. And we're also going to look at how we can give allow list spots away. The allow list spots for Lazy Lions, Gartic games, they can apply for Twitter giveaways. The team will look at how we can allocate spaces there, and if it makes sense. I'm not going to promise and say yes, we can change that, but I think we just need to look at that and see how many we can allocate, and let's be transparent there. Allow list spots for other communities. We've already started speaking with other communities. We haven't put a ton of time into this. So again, this is something we're just going to go back with the team and see if it makes sense too, based on the feedback that we get from community. Cubs marketing, as we mentioned, we did bring Hazel in to lead up this function, which the community's been super excited about, which is great. So that's something we let's give time. With the roadmap updates as well, I think we went through quite a bit with the VR chat, with Coinbase, that whole discussion around partnerships in general. There's no actionable items there, but if anybody does have any other questions, you can throw them in the AMA. Like I said, we're going to go through all of those AMAs right now and just answer them back. Kings, Queens, Royals, thank you so much for jumping on this call. Everybody who jumped on and discussed as well, I really appreciate that. I know it's not easy jumping in front of 200 people and having that discussion, but I genuinely really appreciate the discussions. So thank you all. I think with that, Nine, this is probably a good place to cap it off.
It's been a long chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of questions.
All right.
All right.
Awesome.
Cheers, guys.
Have a great night, great day, evening, wherever you are.
Enjoy.